That was good. Now everyone won't know how great
All
the
right, we are
pre-show was.
live.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. According to this YouTube studio, there's 15 concurrent viewers,
Oh,
Brian.
damn.
It's exciting.
Wow.
No
15
pressure.
concurrent viewers, all just going wild in the chat saying, I wonder what the first half of Brian's sentence was.
Yeah, Brian's really proud of his gimmick there of talking after I press the button to go live. It's good. I mean, it's better than my gimmick to start the second half of the show. So
It is. I
you have
think
that.
maybe we should try my gimmick for the second half of the show.
Okay, so you lead in. Okay, this is what I would love. There was actually a podcast I used to love so much, and I stopped listening. I don't even know why, actually, now that I think about it. It's called
Can I?
Hollywood Handbook. Oh, you're going to interrupt. Okay, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I was gonna guess which podcast, and it was the
Oh,
wrong
I see.
podcast.
And anyways, they would start every episode like as if it's like the theme music is playing, and then the person's like mid-story. But it would always be like this like crazy because it's about like Hollywood douches telling their like, it was like improv comedy or whatever. And anyways, and then you'd be like, so I was saying to like Sophia, Vargara, like blah blah blah, why would I jump into the thing? Like I don't know. So you could do that to start the second episode. I think it would be funny if you it's as if we were in the middle of a sentence and that's how the show starts. So we'll try it. That'll be fun.
Okay.
And I'll be like, oh, hey, Brian, we're live. It's part 2. All right.
I love that.
Okay. It's going to be great. So,
Gonna
Panarin has a
bail
hat
for
trick.
sure. Who?
Panarin's so good.
He is so good.
Yeah.
That guy.
We should do a whole podcast where it's just saying, like, he's so good. Like, just go through players, just like, he's so good.
Just all Panarin. A
We should do
Panarin
like,
cast.
yeah. Well, just Panarin. Okay. Well, I think I could fill 20 minutes on Panarin. I don't know if I could do much longer than that.
I don't know. You could fill 20.
Yeah. Memories.
You have that sentimental attachment to Panarin.
Yeah. I could talk about the different
Panarin was like your Panarin is like my Mathieu Perreault.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a deep cut. All right. Let's do this. Say 10. Here we go. Yeah. Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who are excited to make some connections tonight, some deep connections. We'll find out. I'm your host, Elon Dubrowski, and with me to break down some interesting fantasy news from the past week, we're going to be looking at the hot streaks, the cold streaks, the injuries, the outjuries, just any tips and tricks we can give you to be successful moving forward, who to add, who to drop. I could keep rambling, but let's hand the mic over to my very good friend, the fantasy hockey robot, the Poobah prognostication, the IPP MVP himself, Brian Kahn. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for asking. I'm in general. How's it going to you, dear listener? I hope everyone's doing good. It's lovely to be back. Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. And to be with you to make, as Elon said, deep connections. That doesn't just mean with the content. That means with you. And I mean those listening, Elon, you and I, the general universe. I look forward to coming out of this episode much better connected than I was going into it.
Brian, okay, how about this? From now on, let's request that whenever someone asks us an advice question, like on Twitter or in the Discord or something, I'd like you to start with like telling us how you're doing. So just, be like, I'm doing fine. Like I'm having a good day. I just came back from the dentist. Anyway, so Patrick Kane, do you think I should drop this person for him? Just so we could connect and kind of get to know each other a little better.
I would love to have a little bit of insight into anyone's lives as they ask us for advice. Like even just like, hey, I'm sitting in the waiting room.
Let us know where you're writing the question from.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably just gonna be like I'm writing from my home office.
I mean, I'm on the toilet on my phone.
It's going to be the toilet. Oh, okay. If you're on the toilet, use code word. I don't know. I guess toilet.
Yeah.
We don't need to paper over it. No pun intended.
Yeah. Okay. Brian, so we got a lot to get to today. I'm excited for this show. We're presented by Dauber Hockey. I'm always excited to go to that site. That's for darn sure. DauberHockey.com. Great articles, frozen tools, amazing tools. It's all the best. Okay. But with that, Brian, the plan is I'm going to try to weave in and out between the different teams as we go and connect them as you will. But of course, we're going to have to start with a number. Well,
like a terrible driver on the 401.
There it is. Yes. And we're going to have to start, of course, with the top headline of the week. Patrick Kane has, signed with Detroit. It's big news. It was already talked about on short shifts. Shams really brought the hammer down on anyone thinking of getting Patrick Kane, and for good reason, right? But it was a really fun, like, I guess I don't want to call it a rant, but just a pitch of why you shouldn't be too excited. Of course, he's coming off this surgery that like no one has ever been successful coming out of this surgery. Nicholas Backstrom, the most recent example. Of course, on the flip side, if I wanted to be like, give you reasons to be hyped about Patrick Kane, is he's Patrick Kane. He's one of the top whatever 50 all time. I don't know. It would be fun to make a list. For sure, future Hall of Famer. He's been good as recently as like a couple years ago. He had a lot of chemistry with Alex DeBrincat. So I'd imagine they're going to start together and try to rekindle what they used to have. It's actually an interesting situation right now in Detroit because, first of all, they're good. I don't know if everyone realizes this that aren't Red Wings fans. They're currently ahead of Toronto. They're third in the Atlantic. They're only 1 point behind Florida for second in the Atlantic. Also, Kane's coming into a situation where Detroit has sort of been messing with their lines. Like Larkin and DeBrincat were on separate lines in the last game. So maybe it's going to be like Patrick Kane, DeBrincat, and who knows, right? Like Comfer, like it could be kind of anything right now. So Brian, I guess what's your general take? If Patrick Kane is out there, or if you have him, like just how excited are we? Obviously, it'll be fun when we actually have some data when we can look into things and we have some line combinations. But he's going to be coming soon. What are you expecting?
I'm gonna sort of side with Shams here and say I'm not coming into this expecting a whole heck of a lot from Patrick Kane. And like this is me. Okay, I'm not that far removed from saying Patrick Kane was someone that we could still hope for 90 points from last last season. I thought he could still pace for 90 points. I didn't think he could pace for as close to 100 as he usually did. But then last season we saw a side of Patrick Kane that wasn't so pretty. And yeah, sure, it had a lot to do with the team he played for in Chicago, right? I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Patrick Kane was entirely alone and asked to do a lot. And yeah, he was probably like playing somewhat banged up and injured, and maybe it's safer to assume that he's gonna be healthier coming in this time than he was last time, but also maybe he isn't. I don't know. He just did not seem at all his usual dominant self last season. And for whatever reason, honestly, like you could say, oh, it's because he was injured. Oh, it's because of the team he was on. I'm not like feeling any better about any of those reasons this year. He's coming off major surgery. He's 35 years old. He is starting with a brand new team. Yeah, he's got a familiar line mate there in Alex DeBrincat potentially. But also, who's his center going to be, right? And that's not necessarily a question we've had to ask of Patrick Kane a whole lot, but I think it's a fair question to ask about Patrick Kane at this point in his career. So, Elon, with all
Dylan
that,
Larkin, Brian, it would be probably the best guess.
Ideally, yeah, if they load up Larkin and DeBrincat and Kane, sure, but that leaves very little for their other three lines. And the way I've seen the Wings deploying their forwards at the present moment, which I believe you're about to get to, doesn't necessarily tell me that they are very willing to load up a top line. So yeah, might they? Sure. If they do, that's good news for Patrick Kane. He could be top line, top power play. Like, I'm not saying like forget it. How about this take, Elon? I'm gonna say that when Max Pacioretty returns, maybe I should say if Max Pacioretty returns, I would expect him to outperform Patrick Kane. How about that?
That should be like a bet available somewhere. Like who's going to have a higher point pace, Kane or Pacioretty? I mean, the thing is, like, I agree with you, Brian. Like I wouldn't take I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like, it'll take a lot. It would be impressive. I'm very excited to see how it'll go. I'll be watching that game when he comes back if I can. But speaking, by the way, Brian, of some of these players on other lines, like one player who's really jumped out is JT Compher, who I brought up before. I don't know if you realized, Brian, Compher is now up to 19 points in 23 games after he scored a couple goals versus Chicago a couple of games ago. This is a guy who, like, I've seen in free agency on and off throughout the season. But he's on a real hot run right now. And I guess, yeah, as far as the lines, I should probably say what they were in the last game. So Dylan Larkin came back after he missed a game because of, the family tragedy, and like, good on him to, I don't even know how to, I'm not good at this stuff. And nice to see him back. And, didn't miss a step. Right, he was actually on a cold streak. If you recall, Brian Larkin was cold for a few games, went 5 games out of points, but now is back to a 4-game point streak. Had 4 and 4 and 5 and 5 shots in his last 4 games. So Larkin is back cruising like he was at the start of the year. But yeah, in this last game, Larkin was playing with Joe Veleno, former first round pick, late, of course, and Lucas Raymond, another former first round pick, a bit higher. And then that left Alex DeBrincat to play with Comfer and Michael Rasmussen. Then you had David Perron with Fabry, who actually did have a couple of good games. But yeah, so then, then the rest. So yeah, we'll see if Comfer sticks with Alex DeBrincat. And what if it's Patrick Kane as the third instead of Michael Rasmussen? Maybe we should just be more excited about JT Compher at this point. You probably don't even have a chance to grab Kane. He was probably taken already if you're listening to this. But yeah, I'm curious to know if you think what Compher is doing is at all sustainable.
I'll let you know, but first, can I share a workshop a macabre joke on you?
Hit me. Okay.
What do you call a late first round pick after he dies?
Okay, I don't know.
A late first round pick.
Okay.
Thanks. Try the veal. Said okay. I will go. JT Comfort. Yeah, no, he's having a great season. I mean, the deployment on the top power play is good. The deployment at 5-on-5, I mean, with DeBrincat is good, but JT Comfort is a center, right? And he actually made a decent name for himself in Colorado as being the second line center with one good winger who would occasionally go on runs. Now, what we're seeing from him, I don't want to take away from what Comfer's managed. Like you said, Elon, 19 points in 23 games. That's a 68-point pace, which is 16 points higher than any pace Comfer's had before. And that previous career high was last season in Colorado, a 52-point pace. The thing with JT Comfer is that if he doesn't point, you're screwed. Because in the last 13 games, JT Comfer has had because in the last 13 games, JT Comfer has only twice had more than a single shot on goal. And some of those times he did not even have a single shot on goal. So, in the cupful, even if JT Comfer gets you an assist and a shot, you might do better by getting someone who takes a few shots and doesn't score, or a defenseman who picks up a couple blocks, a couple hits, and a couple shots. So I would be mindful of Comfer's multi-cat helpfulness in this case. But yeah, no, his 5-on-5 scoring rate is fantastic this year, and I think it's mostly because he's got a high on ice shooting percentage. It's twice what it was last year in Colorado. The Red Wings are scoring on 14% of their shots while Comfer's on the ice, and but don't actually show any increased threat level to go with that higher shooting percentage compared to Comfer's line mates in the past. So, Elon, I would assume that this is smoke and mirrors for Comfer, who, by the way, is also shooting personally 23%, which contributes to that high on ice shooting percentage for his team. He's scored 6 times on 26 shots in 23 games. So that also illustrates the whole shot problem for JT Comfer. So I think he's on a bit of a heater, which is lovely while it lasts. And when it stops, boy, you'll want nothing to do with him. So I'm not going to go fish him out of free agency now, even though I think now is the time that everyone's like, oh, JT Comfer's out there and he's one of the highest performing guys available on my wire. That's great. I understand the temptation. And by all means, you can give it a shot, but I'm not counting on Comfer being fantasy relevant for a whole lot longer.
Okay. Yeah. I have actually a bunch of players I'm going to be bringing up throughout the episode that might be free agents for people. So it'll be fun to. So Comfer's our baseline. Brian's not too high. We'll see how he compares to other forwards as we keep going. Quickly, though, on the defense for Detroit, man, there's some intrigue here. First of all, Seider has started to heat up. He was a bit cold for a while, but now we've got 4 points in the last 3 games from Moritz Seider. Up to now a 57-point pace on the season, 16 points in 23 games. Very respectable, especially great considering he hasn't even been on the top power play. The top power play has been Shane Gostisbehere, who's got to be one of the most frustrating people in fantasy right now because he just goes pointless for a bunch of games in a row. And then he has a 3 or 4 point game. And then he goes pointless again for a bunch of games in a row. You probably drop him just for him to get a 4-point game on someone else's team or still on waivers in your league. That's what happened to me. Anyways, I'm curious to see how long he'll be rostered in my division now that he's on a 3-game pointless streak, which was followed the 1 goal, 3 assist game versus Minnesota. So Gostisbehere is frustrating. On the flip side of a Shane Gostisbehere, I think the exact mirror opposite of Gostisbehere, who is like super hot for one game and then cold for a bit, is Jake Wallman, who's just like a real steady guy, especially in a league like the Cupful, where we, give points for blocks and we give points for shots. Wallman's getting you like 3, 4. There was even an 8-block game recently. He took 4 shots in the last game and had a goal and an assist. So Wallman's actually now hot in terms of points, 5 points those last 4 games. He's going to give you the blocks. He's really solid for shots. Like if you look at Wallman's shots, we're at 1.9 shot per game on the season. I don't know. It's felt like more. I guess it's like gone up recently. Maybe he started not taking as many. He has a couple zeros in there, which brought it down. Yeah, actually, he's also kind of like a Gostisbehere in terms of the shots. He's like a big game and then a low game. But I don't know. Overall, in terms of fantasy points in a points league, Wallman is solid. And I'm at the point now where I feel like he's good. Like you should probably grab him. Like in the couple 14-team league, I let him go. Someone else ended up getting him. He was in free agency for a little bit after being dropped. I've got him in both of my dynasty leagues. I love him there. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's like a really solid guy. I know, Brian, you were a big fan last year of Jake Wallman.
I was. Jake Wallman had a really nice, solid peripheral baseline, and also on top of that, scored a few more points than he should have. It's not his fault. It's not Jake Wallman's fault that I was snoozing on him by the end of my time holding him, but he really did help me in a time where I desperately needed help on defense. I think my only defenseman was Luke Shen. Like, I'm not even joking. My only healthy defenseman in the cupful was Luke Shen. Jake Wallman was one of a couple guys who really saved me by filling in those spots as badly as I needed them to. So yeah, no, I think he's a great, solid floor guy with the potential for points, especially if, Detroit remains reasonably offensive. One thing, that I don't expect Wallman to keep up is he's on a 20 goal pace right now. I'd expect him to be on more of a 10 goal pace the rest of the season, which means, you're looking at about a 40-point pace with a couple shots a game and a few blocks to go with those shots. And that's still not chopped liver, right? That's still pretty decent stuff. So yeah, Jake Wallman is a deep, like a deep-ish cut. I don't think he's like a must-have on your roster, but if you're looking out to fill your 3rd or 4th defenseman spot, you could do worse than Jake Wallman. And that sounds like an underhanded compliment, but I meant it. Going back to Gostisbehere, Elon, that's exactly what you would expect from Gostisbehere at this point, right? But consistency is something that has not found Gostisbehere for a while. He did have that crazy run as he was sort of working his way out of Arizona, but it was also entirely unsustainable there too. So like it looked consistent, but it wasn't actually like sustainably consistent. And since then, I mean, it's amazing that Gostisbehere is still on the 67-point pace. But you can sort of count. He's only pointed like 3 times in the last, I don't know, just like 17 games he's played. But he's had, or 4 times in the last 17 games he's played. But in those 4 outings, he's had 4, 2, 3, and 3 points. So yeah, like you said, you just hope you hit the jackpot with Gostisbehere. And sometimes that's worth trying to win your week for. As for Seider, you mentioned how he's not on the top power play unit. And it's really interesting that he's not. Only because he's putting up top power play production. Like Seider's power play production is fantastic. He's got 10 power play points in 23 games so far, which is crazy. Like that's really impressive considering, he still has seen a good chunk of power play time through the season because there was time where he was quarterbacking the top unit with Gostisbehere playing net front. That's not the configuration the Red Wings have been using lately. And so that hurts him a little bit, obviously, but I'm curious to see how much. So here's the thing. I think normally I'd say that's not going to keep up from the second unit, but I also don't feel like this is actually going to be the second unit the whole way through. Like I think Seider's still going to find his way back up into the top unit eventually. That's just a guess. I can't be sure, but I'll put that out into the universe and we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, yeah, holy cow, what a season Moritz Seider's having. Largely thanks to that power play production. He's on a 57-point pace, but nice, healthy peripherals in the hits and blocks category too. And yeah, even if the power play production, like even if he stays on the second unit, then this power play production won't sustain. And he's still a 50-point player with great peripherals in that case. So I think it's a win-win for anybody who went for Mo Seider in their drafts.
Yeah, and they're obviously hoping that you're right and things are going to change. I guess they're going to have a new piece in with Patrick Kane, so there'll be a reconfiguration for sure. Okay, of course, Patrick Kane, famous for being on Chicago for all of those years. Over in Chicago, there was first of all the drama with Corey Perry, obviously not especially fantasy relevant at this point, but that's taken care of. We'll see if he signs anywhere or not. But then after they waived Corey Perry, they made a trade, gave a late pick to get Anthony Beauvillier and his contract from the Vancouver Canucks. And Beauvillier went right to the top line and top power play in his first game on Chicago versus Winnipeg yesterday on Saturday. No points, 2 shots. Yeah, that's about it. Not too much. He's not playing today. I think because of visa issues or something, because Chicago is in the States. So I guess they're still trying to figure that out. So in today's game for Chicago, they went back to a Kurashev and Nick Foligno playing with Connor Bedard. It was Kurashev and Beauvillier, I should say, that were the top line for that game yesterday. I guess what we've got JT Compher, like we said, as our baseline here. If Beauvillier is out there, and if we see on game day tweets that he's still going to be on the top line and top power play when Chicago, gets him back into the lineup, who would you take between those two? Hello.
Sorry. Um, Sorry, I was looking something up. If Beauvillier and who got back into the lineup?
If Beauvillier gets back into the lineup and is back on top line and top power play,
Yeah,
because I'm keeping a running total, so I'm comparing him to now Compher because you said
okay,
Compher
Beauvillier versus Compher. Got it. I'm gonna go Beauvillier, and again, this might be related to like some feelings from last year when Anthony Beauvillier, when he was traded to Vancouver, did well in a way that also was not terribly sustainable, but it sustained my fantasy team for a few key weeks heading into the playoffs. And I wonder if there's like another new team bump for Beauvillier here too. Remember, he's 26 years old. Vancouver was supposed to be kind of a fresh start for him, and he sort of got it, but he couldn't hold on to it for very long, even with some half decent production. And to me, that's a sign, honestly, that he played himself out of favor in Long Island. He played himself out of favor in Vancouver. And so I don't expect him to really do a whole lot better in Chicago, except for the fact that there's nobody else there. Right. So I actually streamed in Beauvillier on Saturday. I've already dropped him because I didn't like the 2 shots. But I wonder if he can get back on the top line, if he can be useful. Like he just basically has to bump Nick Foligno, right? And the power play bar is also low. So I have to imagine it's in Chicago's interest to give Beauvillier some opportunity, try and drive up his value a little bit, or let him play up his value if there is any value to be had, so that maybe they can recoup something for the asset come the trade deadline. I don't know that they'll really be fooling anybody, but yeah, like to me, it's like, okay, you got Anthony Beauvillier, someone with pedigree, someone who once upon a time we thought we could see some decent things from. A late first round pick back in 2015, Elon, your favorite type. So I would like to see Beauvillier get a shot, but I'm also not like, you can go ahead and do a speculative ad on him to try and get out in front of it, but I don't think you'll be missing a whole lot if you just wait to see if and when he can get up there and stick and do something meaningful. Because even if he does start going off, I don't even know that that'll be sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to not be on the side of Beauvillier. So I guess I'll respectfully disagree. If I'm choosing between Compher and Beauvillier, I'll probably go Compher, but maybe neither of them will be worth rostering long term. Yeah, in Chicago, I mean, they've tried Lucas Reichel, who then was a healthy scratch today. Like, I don't know, different people have had different shots. Bedard is doing decently, but and Kurashev is like okay. And that, I don't know. That's it. But Brian, so Beauvillier, of course, just came from Vancouver. We talked about the Canucks last week, and we talked specifically about how Kuzmenko was healthy scratched, and we were thinking if maybe he'll be able to bounce back after that. It hasn't gone that well, unfortunately for him. Kuzmenko now is he had a goal a couple games ago versus Vegas, but aside from that, we're looking at 1 point in his last 6 games. He's been bumped from the top power play, and the person that has bumped Kuzmenko from the top power play is someone very interesting, Filip Hronek, who we'll get to in just a second. But Kuzmenko, are we in snoozer territory with Kuzmenko at this point, especially now that he's been bumped from the top power play? In the last game versus Calgary, Kuzmenko was on a line with Besser and JT Miller, which is good. It's like maybe not as good as being with Pettersson, though. I mean, maybe you can make an argument. But yeah, I don't know. It's a good for even strength line, but he's not producing. He's not on the top power play. How much longer do you hold this guy?
Kuzmenko, I already dropped him like when we last talked about him. So yeah, no, I'm not holding on a whole lot more. Remember, like even the scoring to date that looked impressive for Kuzmenko wasn't not necessarily entirely sustainable. His scoring last season wasn't sustainable. In and out of the lineup. minutes falling in the middle six range, not necessarily like not deployment that I think you can really rely on. So yeah, Elon, I think like he's a bottom roster. Like he was mid bottom roster before maybe. Now he's a bottom roster type player. And if you're in a pinch and you need to get some quick wins, he's not someone that I'd want to be relying a whole lot on. Like it's not to say he won't go on a tear at some point, right? Like he definitely seems like somebody you might kick yourself for letting go of in a weak moment, but I think you could justify it.
Yeah, well, I let him go at the beginning of last season after he started cold, and I kind of regretted that the whole rest of the way. But obviously, he has not been in the good graces of Rick Tocchet lately, and I think he'll need that before he can become really valuable to you in fantasy again. Brian, let's take a quick break, and then we get back. Let's talk about the guy who's replaced Kuzmenko on that top power play, because that is someone who I will be very shocked if you say that you're not interested in. So we'll be back in just a sec. Okay, Brian, we are back. Holy cow, Filip Hronek. He was like, I remember we were doing mock drafts going into the season, and he was always like a defenseman that was available still in like the last couple of rounds. And I was like, that might be a good like sleeper D. He's on a new team. He was good on Detroit for stretches. In my actual real life draft, I didn't get him. Someone else did. And that was a real miss because Filip Hronek is now up to 25 points in 25 games. He's a point per game guy. If it like he and Quinn Hughes are breaking records. I just saw a tweet recently. They're like the first pair of defensemen like ever to both get, or the fastest pair of defensemen ever to get to 25 points on the same team. Like it's pretty incredible what he's doing. Like the streak is like just so hot right now. 7 points in his last 6 games. He's just getting it's all assists, by the way. He has 2 goals and then 23 assists. Hronek is now on the top power play, so things have gotten even better than the last time we talked about him. What's my question for you? It's just like, how bad should I feel that I missed out? I don't know. I don't really want to ask that. That's kind of negative. How about just like, how for real is this? Like, is Filip Hronek like a sure thing, must hold, or should maybe, because the other flip side is, of course, you have Filip Hronek on your team. He's on this crazy hot streak. Now's a great time to get some really awesome return for him in trade if you want to go that route.
He feels pretty for real to me, Elon. Like the one part that doesn't feel so for okay, listen, and when I say for real, I'm not saying point per game for real, but I am saying like I see reason to regress him. I just dinged Comfer for being on ice for 14% shooting percentage, and I'll do the same for Hronek. It's about the same number, but still, like you take that into account, and you've still got a really, really healthy producing defenseman who's taking 2 shots a game and adding a hit and a block. The other piece of Hronek's production that gives me reason to think that Hronek is not going to remain a point per game player is that he has 8 power play points in 25 games, which is, nearly a season's worth of second power play unit production. But here we are in a moment where Hronek is actually heading on to the top power play and has a chance to keep up that piece of the production. So I would say, that being on the top power play versus the second power play the rest of the way might be a difference of 10 or 15 points. So if he heads back to the second unit quickly, I'd still say that Hronek could be like a 50-point pace player. And if he holds up on the top unit, then I would say Hronek could actually, could eclipse 60, even like 65. I don't think would be totally out of the question. He looks good.
Yeah,
You're
I
muted.
mean,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I guess obviously the power play is the thing. And even in the last game, I see that there were some points where Kuzmenko was getting a shot and they were back to just like 4 forwards and a defenseman. So obviously this might be something that's in flux all throughout the season. But yeah, Hronek just always is finding a way to pass the puck to someone who scores a goal. That's been happening all season long, and the Canucks are not shy to score some goals. We had a question actually from Chris S on the Discord if he should trade Svechnikov for Hronek. He needed defense. Would that be a bridge too far? Svechnikov is on a hot streak himself. I'm talking about Andrei Svechnikov, of course, on Carolina. 7 points in his last 6 games, 2 assists in the last game versus Buffalo. Are we at a point now where like if you're saying 65-point defenseman potentially, I think that might be worth a 75-ish point forward. Like I think we see Svechnikov as. So maybe that's, but of course, if it's a points league like a couple and most of the Hronek's points are from assists, you do have to keep that in mind. It's different than goals. Yeah, I don't know. What is it like a kind of like fair trade, or do you think that's like crazy? Like you're not trading Hronek for Svechnikov?
I mean, if I could, I would. And you know what? If I'm wrong about like I would rather just take the sure thing here, right? I'd take Svechnikov because he's been a consistent 70-point player for most of his career so far. And so far this season, Svechnikov, we've talked about him a few times, but he still has just a single goal on 34 shots, which is just a 3% shooting percentage, which is about a quarter of what we would normally expect him to have. So that alone would bump him back up to the 70-point pace that we're used to seeing from him. And I expect that to happen. I'm happy to see that, that we're seeing like a few more one-shot games from Svechnikov than we're used to seeing, but there's still some real healthy 4s and 6s in the game log too, under the SOG column. So yeah, I would much rather Svechnikov than Hronek but still acknowledge that Hronek could, like I said, play up to like a 60, 65 point defenseman, and that's super valuable. I'll just take the guy who's done it before.
Okay, and then going to Carolina now, where Svechnikov is, of course. I remember he missed that game because of illness, and they talked about this on short shifts. By the way, great job, Jeremy and Shams, doing double duty this week. 2 really enjoyable shows. But yeah, so Michael Bunting got his line 1 spot back with Aho and Jarvis, with Svechnikov out of the lineup. And then when Svechnikov came back in the last game versus Buffalo, Bunting stuck there with Aho and Jarvis, and Carolina spanked the Sabres. So I wouldn't be surprised if this holds a little bit longer. Don't worry about Svechnikov. He was on, I guess, line 2 with Kotkaniemi and Teravainen. But yeah, Bunting is back where he was producing at the start of the season. I guess he's not on the top power play, so that's one thing that he's lost. And we'll see if he could ever get that back. But yeah, now we're looking at, well, actually no points for Bunting in that game versus Buffalo. But before that, he was on a run of 6 points in 5 games. Also, Carolina has a great schedule next week, especially at the start, Monday, Wednesday to start the week, 2 off days before going to a Thursday and Saturday. So I would think Bunting, if he's out there, it's got to be an obvious ad, right? Like, is there any reason not to?
No, I don't think so. I myself streamed in Michael Bunting, even though like it was a bit of a hate stream. I'm happy to have him for Monday and Wednesday, but I'm also not that confident he's going to do a whole lot because he really doesn't do a whole lot night in, night out. And in Bunting's last 12 games, he's had no more than 2 shots in any of them and a handful of 0s and 1s scattered in there. So like the hits aren't there. Obviously, he's a forward. There's no blocks either. He doesn't kill any penalties. So you really are just hoping for that assist or goal to happen. And I'm hoping in 2 games, he'll give me at least one of those 2 stats combined. That's it. And honestly, I'll reconsider after Wednesday. But even if Bunting does put up a point each in each of those 2 games, I still might say thanks and see you later. Because I don't know, Elon. Like I don't know if you're more into Bunting than I am, but his ice time is also like all over the place. He's bouncing. He's generally around like 11 or 12 minutes. It's just not that compelling to me. I like him playing with Aho and Jarvis. That's nice. I hope he stays there. I don't know for sure that he will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into Bunting while he's there, but Carolina changes their lines all the time. Brindamore is not shy to swap things around. So he's definitely like you look at game day tweets, and as soon as you see Bunting back with Stefan Nason or whatever, then you move on. The latest casualty of the line blending has been Martin Necas, who was on that line with Stefan Nason and Jack Drury in the last game. But Necas, still got points. He got 2 assists versus Buffalo. He's up to 17 points in 23 games on the season, 61-point pace. I did kind of have a hunch going into the year that he wasn't going to be able to keep up what he did last year, but I think the 60-point pace should be good. And I don't know. I'm not going to personally panic because he's on the 4th line, because you'll snap your fingers and he'll be back with Teravainen and Kotkaniemi probably, and then like Svechnikov will be back on the top line and Bunting will be back on the 4th line. Like we'll see. I guess next time Carolina has a bad game, they'll change things around again.
Yeah, or even after a good game. Like this is something I don't know if like it. Obviously, we know Brindamore blends lines a lot, and I always wonder why. I have feel like he seems like a really strategic guy and like a very team unit oriented guy. And I have this theory. I don't know if it's right, but he just wants anyone to play with anyone at any time, and that all these guys like are kind of interchangeable pieces. Some obviously more valuable or harder to replace than others. But still, it would be great to be able to just blend lines, due to injury or just needing to mix things up or try different looks depending on what the other team is throwing at them. It's an interesting concerted effort, and I hope it doesn't catch on in the league because, yeah,
That would
it's
make our
really
job hard.
It would make it really harder. I think by the way, you said like you didn't think NHS would repeat his 70-point pace this from last season. At 5-on-5, he's actually doing exactly the same thing that he was last season, which is great. Like it was sustainable. It's just that power play production has gone missing. Last season, NHS had 26 power play points, which is what really helped him break through. This year, even though he's seeing similar minutes, he only has 4 power play points in 23 games. So that's like 10 fewer power play points, which is the difference between 70 points and 60 points. I think there's room to grow there, Elon. Like I wouldn't say for sure that NHS is going to stay at 60. I still think that he's got a pretty good chance at 65 points. And the upside for 70 is still there, but I don't know how fancy relevant to take that is. I guess you can try and buy low, but again, honestly, these Carolina guys are just so hard to roster. Like they're great, but the points come in different ways, in different waves, based on where they are in the lineup in any given moment. And I don't want to be on board for that roller coaster. And you probably heard some of that in my answer on Michael Bunting.
Yeah. Okay, but if we're comparing, I guess you had Beauvillier ahead of Comfer. If Bunting's also out there, you're taking Bunting probably ahead of Beauvillier.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, yes, absolutely.
So Bunting is the front runner right now of the potential free agents we've been talking about. So of course I started this whole thing talking about Michael Bunting, and Michael Bunting, if you recall, started his career pretty late. He was an older rookie, but he started over in Arizona. So let's go to Arizona next, Michael Bunting's old stomping ground, and talk about their goalie, Connor Ingram, who for the first time this season got a second game in a row so he played Tuesday, did great. Then Ingram got that second game in a row on Thursday, which shocked the world. Oh my gosh, Ingram getting a second game. And then he followed that up by getting a third game in a row on Saturday versus St. Louis. Oh, by the way, I should mention that Tuesday game was against Tampa Bay, and he only let in 1 goal on 31 shots. And then that Thursday game was against Colorado, another very good team, another recent Stanley Cup winner. He had another win, led in only 3 goals on 31 shots. And then he got the Saturday game versus St. Louis, another recent Cup winner, and another win, letting only 1 goal on 32 shots. Now that is 3 starts in a row for Connor Ingram. The stretch of alternating is long gone. And at this point, why would Arizona ever put Vejmelka back in the net except for a back-to-back with the way Ingram is playing? After this stretch now that he's on, Ingram is now up to 14 games, 10 wins, a 926 save percentage. If he becomes a volume goalie and could keep this up, we're talking like top 10 goalie production. Obviously, the big question is if he'll be able to do it. But I think the obvious thing right now is, well, I mean, I'll ask you if this is the obvious thing. To me, I think the obvious thing is that if you're listening to this right now and you're looking in your free agency and Connor Ingram is out there, this is a pause the pod and like rush to grab Connor Ingram, right?
Yeah, it is. And a couple weeks back, I think it was a couple weeks. I don't remember how long. Like I've had Ingram on my roster for a while just because the schedule streams worked out for me. Like, even on the alternating schedule, I mean, he was playing well enough to make it worthwhile. And I think whenever we last talked about Ingram and Vejmelka, I mentioned that, the Coyotes are like in a wild card spot. And this might be a time for them to actually go with the guy who's winning them games. And at the same time, I said Vejmelka wasn't awful, but Ingram was doing incredible. And that's held true. And they did finally make the choice to keep going with Ingram. And I don't see why they would stop at this point until he does, because he's been amazing. Elon, you mentioned his save percentage. Where I'm looking, you said 926. Where I'm looking, it's 925. But amongst goalies who have played at least 12 games, he sits 4th in save percentage behind. I don't know if none of these guys we would guess. Do you want to try?
So who are the best save percentage goalies in the league right now?
Yeah, for those who've played at least 12 games.
Oh my gosh. This would be a really fun game if I had more time and I wasn't under I'm going to assume, I know some goalies who are good lately, like Hellebuck's been lights out lately, but he had a rough spot at the start. Sorokin hasn't been as good. Shesterkin also had like a bit of a lot of the goalies that we had high up had a bit of a rough stretch. Didn't even Ottinger kind of get a little cold at one point?
He did. Yeah.
So who's left?
Yeah, exactly. All the it'd be funny to look back in Schmore goalies board. I don't think either of these goalies were tier 4 or higher. All right. Okay, so we've got,
let's hear it.
Aiden Hill with a 935 and a 79% quality start. That's incredible. Jeremy Swayman in Boston with a 930, 75% quality starts. Elon, your boy, Cam Talbot,
Of course.
928
Yeah.
with 64% quality starts. And then Connor Ingram with a 925 with 77% quality starts. Right after that, then you get your Demko, you get your Ettinger, and then Jari, Logan Thompson. Like it's still a while till you get to Hellebuck and even Shosturkin. They're there, but yeah, there's been a lot of rough patches for goalies, but not the ones I just named. So absolutely, pause the pod. Go get Connor Ingram if you need a starter. And it's not just like, when it was everyone rushed to get Malcolm before, it's like, yeah, he'll get volume and that's fine. He'll let up a few goals, not win, no big deal. Arizona might be actually good, right? Like they're in a wild card spot. They seem capable of contending for that spot all season long. So it's the first time in a while where an Arizona goalie is not just going to get you saves, but they're actually capable of getting you a win too.
Yeah, so go get Ingram. On the flip side, Arizona's winning all of these games, but their top power play defenseman is not getting in on anything. Like Sean Dursey had a great start to the season, but I'm taking a look right now. He's now pointless in 7. And Kevin, of course, the great Kevin Abarak, couple coordinator, asked us to look into if Sean Dursey is a snoozer at this point. I feel like he's getting blocks. So at the very least, he got 5 blocks in that last game against St. Louis. It's always nice when your defenseman is not doing anything for you offensively. It's nice that they could at least give you a nice little, peripheral floor there. But yeah, Jersey's really slowed down, but he's still on the top power play with Keller and Schmaltz and company. So I don't know. I'd hold on. What do you think?
I'd also hold on. I mean, Jersey, we actually named him earlier on in the season when he was on he had a really great start to the year. That's because he scored 5 goals in his first 8 games, or it was 4 goals in his first 8 games. But was taking a lot of shots too through that stretch. So not enough to justify having scored 4 goals. But anyway, we knew, but what we expected to happen was for the goals to go away and the assists to come. And that actually did happen over the next 6-7 games, but then now we've seen zeros for the last 6-7 games. The good news though is the blocks are still coming. The shots occasionally come, not as regularly as before. The ice time is still there for Jersey too. So I think it is a matter of just hanging on and remembering that Jersey was never going to keep up that initial pace, but I still think 50 points is a reasonable expectation for Jersey over the course of the season with that top power play deployment too. So I am hopeful that Sean Jersey can actually, be someone that you're happy to roster again. Because I know at the moment he isn't. Elon, I was offered a trade, sort of. I was like half offered a trade earlier in the year.
Okay.
Where it was basically Jersey for Schmaltz. And I didn't have a chance to actually respond because the trade was canceled. And once it was canceled really quickly, once it was canceled after a few hours. Anyway, I'm still trying to I'm actually still wondering whether I did the right, whether I should have taken that. I'm happy to have Jersey in a D spot. Those are really hard for me to fill right now. So I appreciate him there so long as he's doing what I expect him to do, which he hasn't been, but I think he will.
Yeah, and Nick Schmaltz is really solid. I don't think you would have regretted taking that deal. I guess it depends how your defense would have looked, but Schmaltz is up to 18 points in 23 games. He's scored a goal in each of his last couple of games. Always nice to get goals out of Schmaltz because he doesn't shoot very much. He's usually more of a Hronek type. But yeah, so Schmaltz is solid, but I think Jersey's going to be fine as well. So we talked about Connor Ingram, Brian. Next up, we're going to go to the team that Ingram started his career. I'll bet you a lot of people don't even know where that is. So I'll let you chew on that while you listen to our next ad break. We'll be back in just a sec.
Nashville.
Nerd. Teacher's pet. You're like the person, you're like the parent who comes with the student for whatever, and then you're answering the questions and it's like.
Well, I purposely delayed it so that you could cut it.
Okay.
I just wanted to be right.
You're so smart. You also have the notes. I
love
have notes here that I wrote.
I didn't get it from there. I knew. Wow. I love all the weaving you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. What was I gonna do again? Oh yeah. Let me bring up some guys that will be ready to go. Oh, I have to fit it. I'll do accountability at the start of part 2. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. The answer is Nashville. And Brian said, if you're watching live, you'll know that Brian knew the answer right away. But yeah, Connor Ingram started his career in Nashville. Now the Preds, they're fine in net. I think UC Saros is pretty good, so I don't think they're regretting it too much letting him go. One guy who they've decided it seems like to let go is Tyson Barrie at this point. Tyson Barrie has been scratched for the last couple of games. He's been told that he can go and talk to other teams. So I think the plan is for Nashville to try to get out from under him. Okay, we'll see. I guess when Tyson Barrie gets traded, we'll discuss if there's any fantasy relevance in his new spot. Obviously, it'll depend. Like if he gets on a top power play last year when Josi was injured for a bit, we still saw that Barrie was worth rostering in deep enough leagues. But I'm not going to get too excited. I'll like spoiler right now. When Barrie gets traded, I can't imagine a location where I'll be like, everyone pause, like grab Tyson Barrie as fast as you can. It'll just be like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We were
Probably
actually
nothing.
we were talking about that on the Discord server, right? Like where could he land? Like what team would he land with that would make us excited? And it was very hard for anyone to find, like a few teams were named and then a few reasons were named as to why we wouldn't be that excited.
There you
There's
go.
not a whole lot of top power play quarterback jobs up for grabs right now that we think, Barry would take. Do you think wouldn't it be crazy if he was traded back to Edmonton and took the top power play there?
I mean, it'll never happen.
No.
So I guess yeah, it would be crazy. Okay, the guy who is on the top power play, of course, Roman Josi, who's really picked things up lately. He was falling a bit behind, like in drafts, like Josi was being taken right near Makar. But then he was falling really far behind to start the year. But lately, Josi is back going 5 points his last 4 games, 7 shots in the most recent game, a loss to the Rangers. So yeah, nothing really, for the people who drafted Roman Josi, I'm sure you're happy to see you're getting like that really super high end
Yes.
production out of him now. But the guy on Nashville, I'll just bring up again. I brought him up a couple shows ago, but I think that we just need to reiterate that Gustav Nyquist continues to be red hot. Actually, it looks like today there was a game versus Buffalo. Since I prepped this podcast, is that game over now? So Buffalo. Oh no, the game's still going. So we'll see, because Nyquist is on a great point streak right now, where he was up to, what was it here? Now all my things are messed up because there's a new game here, but it was 12 points in his last 11 going into today. So even if he goes pointless, and by the way, he does have 4 shots today versus Buffalo. So even if he doesn't point, that's always nice to see. And he still has a period to go. Nyquist is someone I'd pretty much given up on in fantasy for a while. And even when I saw that he was on Nashville, and even when I saw like going into the season that he was going to have a shot on the top line with Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly, like I was like, whatever. But at this point, he's top line, top power play. He's producing. Brian, let's bring back our running list here. I guess if Michael Bunting and Nyquist are both out there, who are you taking?
Good question. Good question. Because yeah, no, I've got to own up to the, Nyquist. I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot since I think we last spoke about him, but the points have kept coming, and most importantly, the shots have kept coming. This is like the most Gustav Nyquist has ever really shot for like several seasons now. To see him like sort of going back between 3 and 4 shot games is pretty impressive. The deployment is still there. So, Elon, I'm going to go Nyquist first.
Yeah,
For as long as this lasts, he seems to be doing well in this deployment. It seems to be holding. Do we have an update on Tommy Novak's injury status?
I think it was like a long one to start, right? It was like
yeah.
4 to 6 weeks, so I don't think that's going to happen anytime
How long?
soon.
How long has it been? Like 2 to 3
All
weeks?
right, November 14th, it happened, and they said 4 to 6 weeks. So,
Okay, so
but
it's
it's
been
been 2 weeks.
three, yeah,
Yeah,
to
2 to 3
about
weeks.
3 weeks since then.
But it doesn't
So
matter. Like all season, it's been Nyquist. Oh, I guess maybe top power play he was there. I don't know. At this point, it
yeah,
just seems like Nyquist is going to hold this spot. That's my
uh,
guess.
yeah. Yeah. That absolutely could happen. So like I'm trying to. So who was in it before?
Well, Tyson Barrie, they were running 2
Yeah,
defensemen on the power
yeah,
play
it
for
was
a bit.
Tyson Barrie, and at 5-on-5, it was guys like I think who else has been up there?
I don't know. I feel like it was Nyquist for a lot of the year, but yeah, there's been a lot of different people. I don't know. Probably like Arsenin and Glass and Tomasino. Like I don't even know. I'm just saying names
I'm
now of players.
I appreciate you saying a whole bunch of names because I'm
Evangelista,
on
probably.
hockeyviz.com right now. Yeah, it was Parsonen for the first like 7 or 8 games, and it's been Nyquist ever since.
There you go. Yeah, so he's in a
Yeah.
really good spot and he's producing. So good for him. 34 years
Also,
old.
the Tommy Novak news. If anybody wants to know the best way to get it, gamedaytweets.com.
That's where I went.
Yeah, you click the news little thing. It's right on top. You can't miss it. And you can filter your news by player. It's amazing. It's a work of
Yeah.
art.
I mean, it's like what Roto World was before it left us, and we needed a
It's
replacement, and Game Day Tweets came in.
it's better.
I guess I liked Roto World a lot. I was sad when it went away.
Me too. You know what? I forgot we had it actually. Like that's how long it's been
Like
without
I
Roto
had Game Day
World.
Tweets going, and we were retweeting news, but we weren't. I wasn't like parsing the player names out, right? Because I was like, whatever. I want to see the latest news on a player. I could just go to Roto World, and when that went away, I was like, well, what if I just want to see the latest of a player? If I want to know what's the latest on Tommy Novak, what's my fast way? And so now, yeah, I go to Game Day Tweets and I search
This
for
is it.
Novak. It takes 2 seconds. Anyway, okay, where were we? Oh yeah, so Gustav Nyquist, before he was in Nashville, he recently came from Columbus. So let's go to Columbus next and see what they're doing. Columbus is actually playing right now, so I guess I can get an update here. It's 1-1 in the third. Elvis Merzlikins, I wasn't. Oh, it's not even Merzlikins playing. Spencer Martin, he's actually doing pretty good too as a backup. So I wasn't planning on talking about the goalies, but that's pretty impressive to be 1-1 in the third with the Bruins, who are having another incredible season. Who scored the goal here? Boone Jenner. Boone Jenner's so good. Okay, I didn't even have Boone Jenner scheduled to talk about
He's
because
so
what's the point?
good.
So what have
Yeah.
the lines been today? Okay. Oh yeah, I wrote in my notes here. Look up what the lines have been today because I didn't know what they were going to be. Okay, I'm seeing here Gaudreau, Jenner, and Kent Johnson. Right. So Kent Johnson was sent to the minors for a while to like learn how to be good again, and he like tore it up in the AHL. And since coming back, he's been now on the top line with Gaudreau and Jenner. So obviously a really good spot. Kent Johnson today, obviously not a point on that Boone Jenner goal, but he is, has 4 blocks. That's pretty cool. Okay. 2 shots. You don't expect to see so many blocks. Not that much ice time. So I don't know. So Kent Johnson is there. Fantilli was talked about on the last Short Shifts episode as a clear drop. So of course he scored on Friday and was on the top power play. So now he becomes maybe interesting again. Marchenko had been on the top power play before. Voronkov is hot now ever since there was that news that came out that he was thinking of going back to Russia. So Brian, here's my question to you. A very generic question. I hope you have an answer ready for me. Outside of Gaudreau, Jenner, and I guess Laine, as frustrating as Laine has been, he's probably not available in free agencies anywhere. Outside of Gaudreau, Jenner, and Laine, who is the Blue Jackets forward to add for next week? They have a good schedule again: Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. I want a Blue Jacket. Who is it? I've given you names: Marchenko, Voronkov, Fantilli, Kent Johnson on the top line. Who do you like?
Yeah. It's
Ah,
like well,
I was
we've
hoping
been
you'd come out like strong, like it's
no,
definitely this
no,
guy.
that's it. We've been playing this game for like long enough now, right? To know that it's a really hard game to win. Like it was Justin Danforth for like not recently, but at the start of the season. Like there's just a lot of guys here, and I think yeah, you know, Elon, I'm tempted to say like the easy answer here. Sorry, the easy answer if you wanted me to come into a certainty is Kirill Marchenko. All right, he's taken 2 or 3 shots a night. His ice time, well, wasn't great against Ottawa.
Okay,
But
yes, but he's been
uh-huh.
good. But he's been on the top line with Gaudreau and Jenner. He's been on the top power play. Now
Yeah,
today, he's not on the top power play, and he's playing on like line 3 with Voronkov and Chinnikov, all
yeah,
Russians line. It's not as
yeah.
good.
He's gotten like this apparent demotion in the last couple games too, but he still has 3 shots tonight in less than 10 minutes of ice time so far. So that's promising. Last game he had 2 shots in just over 11 minutes of ice time. So even if he's not playing, he still might do more than any of these other guys. If you want to go straight, you could also take the tack of going straight by deployment, right? And just pick the guy who's in the best position. And I think Elon, we haven't seen a power play yet for Columbus this game, so we don't have that info. But
It was
I
Fantilli
think,
last game.
yeah, it was Fantilli last game. I don't know if it would be again, but at 5-on-5, the guy with the best deployment, I think, is Kent Johnson playing with
But he has
Johnny
hardly
Gaudreau
any.
and
But he
Boone
has hardly
Jenner.
any ice time today.
I
So
know.
what's
So
that
that's it.
about?
Like all of these guys, there's more reasons to not like them than there is to like them.
All
And
right,
so
so
you
let's move
you can
on.
go ahead. Like Elon, how many more turns are you going to give Adam Fantilli on your roster this year?
Well, I hate him now because I finally dropped him before Friday, and then he scored a goal. The thing is, like, I'm getting destroyed in my matchup. McCall's having like a matchup for the ages, so I would be a lot more mad if like that goal was going to be the difference. But I'd probably go Fantilli again for next week, but I don't think I will. I'm going to try to find someone on another team. Well, I'll let you help me decide as we go through all these potential free agents. So that's the answer there over on Columbus. Also, I totally jinxed them now. Boston has just scored a goal. Brad Marchand on the power play. So now it's 2-1. And maybe Spencer Martin will let in like 5 more goals now since I talked him up a little bit. Brian, we still have so much to get to. I feel like we've barely started and we're already an hour in here.
Uh-oh.
So here we are at the end of part one. We're going to get to as much as we can in this next part. We're going to have to see how we link up from Columbus to the next team we're talking about. And you'll have to wait and see by downloading the new episode. Or wait, psych, just kidding. You probably already have the new episode in your podcast feed if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed, we'd appreciate it. Okay, just auto download the episodes. And then you get those. You know what if you're in the subway right now and you're like, okay, I'm ready to listen to part 2 on Spotify. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I'm on the subway. I don't have any reception. Now I have to wait. What are you going to do? Listen to This American Life? It's a good podcast. I wouldn't blame you. But if you want to get part 2, hopefully it's there waiting, and we'll be back in just a sec. So talk to you soon.
Wow.
All right. So Brian, you got your intro ready to go?
What was I supposed to do again?
You're going to be like middle of a story. Like the music is going to be going, Karlsson scores. And you're just like, and then I said to Billy, I don't know, but it's going to be something funny and interesting, of course.
Okay, well, hang on.
You don't have to, though, if it's going to take a long time for you to think of it.
Yeah, no, I think we should just
All right. Well, I don't want to do the other thing. I'm just gonna be normal. How about that? We're just gonna
be normal.
Intro. What's up, everybody? All right, part 2 of the Keeping Karlsson Mega Show. And Brian, I have so much more to get to. Like I said at the end of part 1, I'm really excited to dive into things. But before we find our connection from Columbus, we have to take a quick diversion here because a new mainstay of the show is going to be our accountability segment, where we take a look at what we said a month ago and then see how we stacked up. And we've got Trev, our accountability czar, I believe is I don't know. I keep on forgetting what exactly it is.
That's it. That's the word.
I like it. Okay. So yeah, let's take a look at what we said a month ago. Trev posted this on November 29th. So let's go through the things and see how we did here. So first of all, Brian, we were talking about Teuvo Teravainen at the time. You said he's more likely a streamer than a hold, and you would prefer Kotkaniemi. I said I'd prefer Teravainen. So far over the last 30 days, so since that show, Teravainen has averaged 3.68, a couple points per game, Kotkaniemi 3.39. So technically I was right, but also they're both kind of streamer level, because I like to think of it as like 4-ish, a couple points per game for a forward to be above replacement. So yeah.
I mean, I will give you, though, Teravainen has been great in his last 9 games. Have you noticed? He's 9 points in his last 9 games.
There it goes.
And has 14 shots over his last 4, and is back on the top power play. I mean, he's been there for most of the season, but he wasn't doing anything there. Teravainen has 3 power play points now. So that's good. In the last 9 games. So something's going right for him. I don't know how long it's going to keep going right. Like, my faith in Teravainen has really been shaken more than yours, Elon. But he's on a 64-point pace. He is shooting 22%. So that's not going to hold. He's like a 10% shooter or something. So I would expect him to be like maybe still 55, 60 points, but that's better than the 50 points that I had him at before he did anything on this run.
All right, so I guess lessons learned, at least here. Teravainen, last year was so weird, but before that he had such a great career, and there was no like obvious reason why he had gotten so much worse. So I guess
yes, there was. What? Everyone listening can tell you.
Because he did good power play. Okay, but there was a stretch where he was back on the power play last year. Anyways, we already had go listen to the show from a month ago where we discussed this.
Listen to any episode from last year and you'll hear Elon bring it up and me remind him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Brian's so smart. Elon's so dumb. Okay.
No, that's not. That's Brian retains information. Elon sometimes does not.
Yeah, the qualities of smart and dumb people. Okay, so next up, Trev brings up how we were talking about Elias Pettersson and how incredible he had been to start the season. He had 6.97, a couple points per game over the first 3 weeks. He was pacing for 133 points. Brian, you brought up some potential concerns with the underlying numbers. I think I remember that conversation. I think I was like, yeah, but like, he's still Elias Pettersson. Like, I feel like he can maybe overcome it by shooting more or doing whatever. Anyways, you were right. that that was not sustainable. Like he was pacing, like you said, for 133 points. Since then, he's been pacing only for a mere 93 points, which I guess is a pretty significant difference, right? Still great, but like very different. Not like a potential top 5 pick, now more like a late first round pick, which is where he was taken. So I guess he has fallen to expectations, but still, he's very very good.
Very, very good, which, yeah, that's exactly what we said at the time. I mean, it's not a huge shot to take to say, hey, this guy's not going to keep going at the 130 point pace he's currently on for the very first time, which, but Elias Pettersson, we would give him that room to grow. But yeah, there were some unsustainable pieces there, and those have fallen away since. And that has just left the extremely very good, still basically first round pick worthy Elias Pettersson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish that he had fallen to me, so I wouldn't have taken Alex Ovechkin. But alas, can I just blame all of my woes on having that 14th pick? That stunk. 14th overall. Tage Thompson, who's injured, and Ovechkin,
How's
who's
your
actually
team allied chat doing?
we suck. No, I don't know. We it seems like we lose most weeks, but we're having fun. And
My mine loses too most weeks. We're pick oh gosh, I already remember. I forget. 10? It's 10 or 11.
I think that I would be doing better if I took Kale McCarr. That was a whiff. That's a accountability on me. I don't know. I was like, oh, he was like, there was some news in training camp that he was already a little hurt or banged up, and it was like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't
I
want to deal
remember
with
that.
this all year. Yeah,
Yeah. I
stupid.
mean, for what it's worth, the team like pick one, like the McDavid pick also isn't doing well. It's the middle picks this year that really
Yeah,
seem to be succeeding.
but McDavid is good. Like McDavid had a slow start, right? Like I think
Yeah.
that the McDavid people are about to. It's been insane these past couple of weeks for McDavid. I could get into the numbers, but I think he's like what 3 points per game over the past little while. Anyway, the next take here from Trev that he wanted to us to look back on is you went on a rant about how everyone on St. Louis sucks aside from the top line, Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou. Drop everyone else. In the last 30 days, there's actually been more players than just those three who have been above replacement level, according to Trev, he put it at 4 points per game. So, of course, Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou, but then also Braden Shen has had some really good games. He has like a high average, but he's also kind of like a Gossespierre, like a lot of quiet games and just like a few really big ones. Then Falk and Krug have actually turned out to be worth holding. And of course, the big name is Jake Neighbors, who I made as my top streamer pick yesterday. If he happens to be still available to you when I was doing my matchup maximizer. But obviously you wouldn't have known about Jake Neighbors at the time. But now he's top line, top power play. But yeah, would you think that in hindsight, were you too like rough on St. Louis? Like, should you have been more like, it's a cold start, but they'll turn it around? Because they have scored a lot more goals lately since you made that rant.
Yeah, they have. And some of the team's overall numbers have improved too. Like I think I made the point at the time that they weren't going to stay that bad, but I also did cast a reasonable amount of doubt that they would be any good at all. And yeah, as I think we pointed out last week, they've shown me. They've won a bunch of games. They beat Tampa, Colorado, Arizona a few weeks back. And they're still doing okay, although they are losing to most of the better teams they play lately. So
Yeah.
we'll see exactly how St. Louis does. I feel like they're going to be a team that is probably maybe at the top of the bottom third of the league. Whereas at the start of the season, they were looking like a team that would just be at the bottom of the league.
All right, next up here, I said that. Oh yeah, I was mad about Eric Carlson's slow start, and then you were asking me a bunch of players that would I trade Carlson for those guys, and I just said yes to everyone: Meyer, Hamilton, Heiskanen, Dobson. I said I would do it for any of them. After that, Carlson went on a great run, but now, so like according to what Trev wrote here, Carlson has like up to 5.89, a couple points per game over the last 30 days. But Carlson's cold again. He's annoying me. Only 2 points in his last 7. So hopefully now I can see a pattern and he's about to go off. But it would definitely be nice if he could heat up.
You
Myers,
just
yeah,
you're like scarred about Pittsburgh power play quarterbacks. Like last year with Letang, you could not handle having Letang on your roster. Like that was too much for you. And
I'm
now
used to
Carlson's wearing the same uniform, playing the same role,
brutal.
and letting you down all over again.
Yeah. You know who's the worst of that list by a lot? Meyer, Hamilton, Dobson, Heiskanen. It's Miro Heiskanen. Like, definitely I would be annoyed if I had traded Carlson for Heiskanen because he only has 14 points in 22 games. He has assists in each of his last 2, but yeah, he's just not producing. Last year, Heiskanen had a 76 point pace. Right now, he's pacing for 52. So that's a bit surprising. And so that was like, I know, like kind of a throw off. Like you were just naming players. I was like, yep. I'll trade Karlsson for those guys. I probably didn't think too hard about it, but I don't know. I don't recall what I thought about Heiskanen at the time. But yeah, I'm surprised. But maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Heiskanen's missing some power play production. Like, I mean, last season I argued he might have had a little too much with 34 power play points in 79 games, but now he's on pace for, like he has 6 power play points in 22 games. So it's like it's one every 4 games. It's still pretty good, right? Like it's still he'll end up somewhere around 20 power play points if he keeps up this pace, but that would be the difference between him earning 76-point pace that he did last season and having a 50-point pace that he, or sorry, if it's like a 55, 60-point pace that it looks like he's going to have this season. He's shooting less too, though, which is a bit of a bummer. That is not happening on the power play, though. That's happening at 5-on-5, which I don't know. That's neither here nor there, but there it is for anyone wondering.
And last one here. Maybe next time when I do this, I'll actually just weave these into the actual teams as I talk about them, because I do want to come back to Dallas a little bit later. But lastly, Iafallo, we said was more likely a stream than a hold, and that turned out to be correct. Iafallo, even in great deployment, has not had too many points to be worth like justifying holding this whole time. All right, Brian. So thanks so much, Trev, for doing this. As I was going through that segment, I was thinking about how I'm going to even improve it some more, but nothing, no improvements needed from Trev. You're doing great, and I really appreciate being able to look back on some of these things.
Can I ask you right now? Like, actually, I know the answer, but Hamilton was on that list. Would you trade Karlsson for Hamilton today?
Well,
Hamilton's currently on a 66-point pace on the second, so like same point pace as Karlsson, but on
Brian,
the second power play.
Go to game day tweets for Hamilton. Just
he's also injured.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was more of a thought experiment.
Right. I see. Like, yeah, if Hamilton was healthy, but not on the top power play, but I think I would at this point. Like, it just seems like New Jersey scores more and Hamilton seems more reliable. So I think I would, but doesn't matter.
All right. When he's healthy. All the shots. Yeah.
Well, when he's healthy, I don't know if he'll be back. He's a torn pectoral.
I know. That sounds really painful.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I couldn't stand up if I had a torn pectoral.
Should I risk messing with all of my connections to just go to New Jersey? Because it is interesting. I'll just do it.
Do it.
So Hamilton is hurt. And so Simon Nemec, I believe that's the pronunciation, really high pedigree pick on New Jersey, came in and played his first game of his career and was very, very good. He wasn't on the top power play, but he had a big game. I believe it was 2 assists. Let me just bring up the Devils now. Like, this is a guy who, similar to Luke Hughes, like we're expecting like big things from his career, but also was like, is he really going to be able to come in and do that much as a 19-year-old? But yeah, 2 assists in Nemec's first game. He also had 3 shots. He had a hit. So Brian, I guess like I sort of the running list where we now have, who was it that we just overtook Bunting with? I don't know, whoever it was. Nyquist. Like, I guess it's kind of apples and oranges, obviously, to compare a defenseman to a forward, so we don't have to do that. But like, how interested are you in grabbing Simon Nemec if he's like power play 2, basically taking the spot that Hamilton took? Hamilton was doing pretty great. Nemec, he was, by the way, the 2nd overall pick in 2022. So this is a super high pedigree guy. How excited are you to jump on him if he's still out there?
I think I'd take him for a spin. Like you said, New Jersey has a pretty great offense, right? So I would be interested. Like, at all strengths, they rank 2nd in the NHL in expected goals rates. So that's pretty impressive stuff right there. And that's why I would be happy to have anybody who's playing 25 minutes a night for that team and has some offensive upside, which Nemec has. In his first year as a pro, which was last year with Utica of the AHL, 18 years old, came in, first year pro, again, 18 years old. And just one more time, because for defensemen, that's pretty rare to come in and be impactful there. But Nemec had over half a point per game as a defenseman, as an 18-year-old in the AHL, 34 points in 65 games so far this season. Nemec had 8 points in 13 games, earned the call up to the bigs. And now we'll see how well he can hang as a 19-year-old with New Jersey. I mean, Elon, the first game results are promising. The AHL so far is promising. None of this is a guarantee. Like, we're not just going to say, yeah, he can step in, because I'll say again, like, it is pretty rare for a young defenseman, really under the age of 21, to come in and be impactful. But Nemec does have the pedigree. Also, it's crazy to think that the Devils had a second overall pick in 2022. Do you remember how they got that pick?
Were they not just like not good?
Um,
2022 is so long ago.
it's so long ago. I don't see
Okay, let me
any
get.
any
Oh,
trade notes on that pick. Were they just that bad?
yeah.
In that would be at the end of the 21-22 season. Where did the Devils finish?
So I guess this is all edit or like. Do you want to?
Okay, yeah, fine. We'll just go back for.
I'll go back
I'll
from
say
when I
I'll say
said
when
probably they
I
were just not good.
yeah okay yeah they were just not good. Like they went from a 63 point team in 21-22 to a 112 point team last season in 22-23, on pace to do the same. Like I don't know how often a team just uncorks it like that, but the Devils did. Good for them. That's a great way to get full value out of a rebuild piece, which is be immediately ready for the rebuild,
Yeah, and all Devils need now is some goaltending, which we'll
or
get
immediately
to.
done the rebuild. Actually, is what they've done.
Okay.
Yeah, goaltending would be really helpful. They're struggling back there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess let's talk about it. let's just let's go rogue here. Okay. So yeah, Vanacek is like not doing well. They talked about this on short shifts on the last episode. Vanacek is now up to 879 save percentage in his 15 games, coming off a brutal. Sorry. Vanacek. Let me bring it up. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Up to 879 save percentage now after his 4 goals against game versus the Islanders. He hasn't played since. It's been Akira Schmid coming in and taking over. And, you know, it started looking good. Like Schmid overall hasn't had a great season, but he had a really good game against Philadelphia, got the win, but then Schmid was rolled against San Jose. And it did not go as well. 5 goals against on only 17 shots. So I guess Vanacek gets back in, but this might be a situation where New Jersey needs to figure something out and get a goalie from somewhere, because this is a really strong team that seems to me, and he's getting totally kneecapped by 2 goalies with sub 900 save percentages, kind of similar to Edmonton.
Yeah, I'm looking at the system and I'm seeing their best performing goalie in Utica right now. His name is Isaac Poulter. He's 22 years old, undrafted. It's his third year as a pro. He started in the ECHL, or second year as a pro. He started in the ECHL last season. Played split time between there and the AHL. But at 915 so far with Utica and a 6-3-1 record. And I don't know how far we are from seeing this guy get a chance. Like if I were the coach, I'd be furious and frustrated, especially like the Devils. I wonder how much they enable this because of all the run support they offer. They offer their goalies. But I mentioned the Devils are the second best team, right, in expected goals. For in defense, they're more of like a mid pack, like top of the mid pack kind of team. So like they're not offering their goalies the best protection, but still that's not an excuse for how bad Schmid and Vanacek have been. And they've both been similarly bad in all the games they've played. Going by like the expected like goals saved versus expected metrics, my Delta Fenwick save percentage. But yeah, Vanacek 879, 36% quality starts, Schmid 891, 50% quality starts. So like I guess I'll go with Schmid because he's only gonna be bad 50% of the time, or give me a quality start 50% of the time. How depends on if the glass is half full or half empty there. But who boy, yeah, that's I don't know. I don't know, Elon. I don't know what the solution is. It's frustrating though because that's a team where you should be able to have the goalie and rack up some wins and do well. And that's just not an option in fantasy right now. You're gonna pay, you're gonna get those wins, but you're gonna pay dearly to get
Mm-hmm.
them.
And you're not even getting volume because it looked like Vanacek was losing the net until like Schmid had this last bad start, so you don't even know who to take. Um, Brian, I guess since we're on New Jersey, also we have to talk about Timo Meier returning from his injury. That's exciting. He missed quite a bit of time. He hadn't played since November 14th, but he played on December 1st, so a couple days ago versus San Jose. No points, but hey, he did take 5 shots. That's good, though. On the other hand, his deployment not so great, like playing on a line with Holtz and McLeod, though not to shortchange Alex Holtz. He's on a hot streak himself. And Alex Holtz playing with Timo Meyer. So maybe more reason to be interested in Alex Holtz. But also Meyer didn't crack the top power play. Toffoli, Heeshear, Bratt, and of course Jack Hughes were up there, and I don't see an obvious piece to get bumped. This was my concern with Timo Meyer at the start of the year, and then he went on a hot run when Jack Hughes got injured, and he was getting that top deployment. Like clearly, Meyer has the ability, like when given the opportunity, to be really great. But on this stacked New Jersey offensive team, that opportunity might not be there. So what do you think, Brian? Well, and actually, let me throw two players at you here just to really mess things up. This will be like a pinball game, where all of a sudden we're doing multi-ball, and we'll see how you can juggle it all. But I wanted to also bring up the Dawson Mercer hot streak, because while Meyer is playing with Michael McLeod and Alex Holtz, Mercer is getting the primo deployment with Jack Hughes and Tyler Toffoli. Playing with Jack Hughes is a very good thing to get to do in fantasy. He might be one of the best. Like even McDavid at this point, it's like I don't even want the guy with McDavid. Like maybe it's just like the quality people who get their shots with McDavid just are so low caliber that it doesn't matter. But yeah, all of a sudden Dawson Mercer, who was doing like nothing all season, up to 6 points in his last 4 games. I'd say he's someone I would be rushing to add. Like, how do we compare Mercer, I guess, to whoever Nyquist?
Yeah, I'm sorry you asked me that, because I was gonna throw that back at you. I think I'd go Nyquist just because I'm a little more assured of his deployment holding than Dawson Mercer. Like Mercer can get shuffled off the Hughes line at any moment.
Yeah, I think it's more of those, like if you have like low number of ads, or if you like want to have like a guy who you could just hold on your roster for a long time, then Nyquist is safer. But like for a specific game, if I'm only worried about like next week, I think that the guy playing with Hughes, I'd take more than even the guy take with Philip Forsberg.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So very good answer to your own question. Thanks for that. As for Timo Meyer, it's everything you said checks out with me. The one, like the silver lining in all this, is that I remember when he was injured, you were mentioning how Timo Meyer had figured out how to start shooting again, and had like a run of 5 or 6 games where he was shooting proper the way we expect Meyer to, versus the first 5 or 6 games where he was not. So for Meyer to come back, play 21 and a half minutes and take 5 shots, even if he doesn't have the ideal deployment, is still like a nice starting point for him. So I'm a little relieved to see that. I'm still, not so big on him being able to break a 70-point pace this season, especially if this deployment doesn't keep up, which is, you were hoping for more if you drafted Timo Meyer, but at least you're getting the shots.
Yeah, at least in that first game back. So yeah, we'll see if he can keep that up. Brian, I guess now's a good time to take a quick break, and then we'll go back to we're talking about Columbus, and I was going to link from them. So we'll get back on track there when we're back in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. How the hell is it 9:24 already? We've gone through like a quarter of my notes.
I don't know. What do you want to?
Let's go fast.
Just go fast.
Yeah. Okay. No more expected goals numbers. Only just I like them or I don't like them.
Okay. Breadth, not depth.
Okay, we are back, Brian. So yes, Gustav Nyquist. He came from Columbus. And then we talked about Columbus for a bit. And of course, Columbus has Patrick Laine, and they acquired him on a big trade with the Winnipeg Jets. Let's go to the Jets now and talk about another player who they acquired in a trade this past summer in Gabe Vilardi, who is finally back in the lineup. And Vilardi went onto a line with Cole Perfetti and Alex Iafallo, and you may be like, oh, that's a bummer. I would have wanted him with like Scheifele or whatever. But keep in mind that Cole Perfetti is so hot right now. So he's kind of like someone that you want to get exposure to. And also Gabe Vilardi went right to the top power play, and he had an assist in his most recent game versus Chicago. So if Vilardi is out there, if he's playing with Perfetti and if he's on the top power play, that's good enough for me. So definitely wanted to mention him if he's out there for anyone in free agency.
Yeah, good call. We have so much to get to, Elon, as we were talking about off air. So I'm good to just like give that a thumbs up and keep on moving.
Okay, and Cole Perfetti, I should just contextualize. He's now up to 19 points in 23 games. He's scored in 2 straight. This is the breakout. This is like every year there's like one guy who's like going into his 2nd season or 3rd season who like he has the potential, but you just don't know when it's going to happen. And it's happening for this 21-year-old right now. So great news. And he's on top power play also. He's definitely not getting bumped, I don't think.
Yeah, also, and I admit it with Perfetti. I didn't see it early on in the season. Like in the first couple of weeks, I wasn't convinced. I just was sort of like, meh, yeah, like you could try him for a stream, and like that's sort of what his production was dictating. But Yeah, I'd like to go back and figure out what I might have missed to suggest that Cole Perfetti was this ready.
I mean, it's hard. Oh, nice rhyme. It's hard because you probably were looking at some underlying numbers that indicated that he wouldn't keep it up or whatever. But of course, the thing that's hard to see in the numbers is that he's 21 years old and like he's learning and he's clearly like he was clearly going to get better and he did. So it wasn't like he
Yeah,
was having bad luck and it turned into good luck. I think he's just playing like a lot better.
yeah, I think that's it. And it's just, I wish I knew how to have seen that kind. Like, obviously, like there's a scouting component. Like
Yeah.
there's several other pieces to this, and also like not to be like so quick to anoint Perfetti. Like he's scoring on 19% of the shots he takes, but a lot of that is coming on the power play, which we allow. We forgive that to be like a sustainable way to put up high shooting percentages. So like we'll see exactly where this goes. 70 points still seems like high to me for Perfetti, but 60 points would be good. A big step up on last year. And yeah, Elon, like you said, like sometimes players just get better. Um, he just got better really fast though. Like he came into the season and like 3 or 4 games, it was like, yeah, same old guy. And then game 5 or 6, he's like, oh, okay, now I'm ready.
Yeah. I guess like probably the thing is like it's more likely to happen, not a guarantee, it's more likely to happen when it's a young like early first round pick. That's
Nice.
usually a better sign that it's going to happen. Okay.
That's 8 goals
Of
in his last 12 games, by the way.
on Fuego. Okay. The Jets also, by the way, Connor Hellebuck's really turned things around after a slow start. 7 quality starts in his last 7 games, 5 wins. He's great. He's Connor Hellebuck. Did you know, Brian, that Connor Hellebuck was the 13th goalie taken in the 2012 draft? There were 12 goalies that teams thought were better. Of course, most of those teams would wanted to get those picks back and take Hellebuck instead, but not the team that took the first goalie in that draft, because the first goalie taken was Andrei Vasilevsky at 19th overall by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And all those Stanley Cups later, I don't think Tampa has any regrets. But unfortunately, Andrei Vasilevsky, who missed the start of the season, he's not doing so good since he's come back. He's played 4 games now, and he just let in 6 versus Dallas before finally mercifully getting pulled. We're now looking at an 859 save percentage. He has one, so his first game back was good against Carolina, and since then, yeah, it's been not great against Colorado, Pittsburgh, and Dallas, all sub 900 save percentages. I mean, what can you say? He's coming back from injury, but like I would be worried if I had him. Like, first of all, you drafted him and then had this injury right away. That's frustrating. Then you had to wait so long, and then you were like excited for him to come back, and now he's coming back and blowing you up. Sucks. I wouldn't be surprised if you were just wanted to cut bait at this point because you may be worried that maybe he's just not 100%.
Actually, in one league, this league I was talking about it the other week, where like I was at the bottom early on. I had all the St. Louis Blues, and I've been rising the ranks ever since. I've landed in second now, and first place.
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I haven't. I'm still moving. But first place just picked up Jonas Johansson, and I was like, what? Like, I mean, you only get points for wins in this league. Like that's it. It's points only, and goalies they win or they lose, and that's it. And so I guess I don't know if he's thinking like they're still going to split because Vasilevsky's been bad, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we got to give Vasilevsky some grace here, right? Coming back from injury, missed a lot of time. I think it's okay. Like I think we can let him have some time to settle in, and I wouldn't be opposed to like a Vasilevsky buy low if you can figure one out at this juncture. I'm trying to think of like Elon, would you trade
Cam
Connor
Talbot
Ingram
or Connor Ingram?
for
Yeah.
Andre Vasilevsky? Would you trade Cam Talbot?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Oh, I'm surprised.
I mean, he's Andre freaking Vasilevsky.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, obviously that's the risk, because but a lot of people were worried about buying low on McDavid at the start of the season because they were like, oh, but he doesn't look like he's 100%. So yeah, it's like
Yeah.
maybe he's not the real. And now look at him. So it's like with these elite players, I'm willing to like take that chance. But also on Tampa, I wanted to bring up another player who you would have expected a lot more from at this point. Brandon Hagel. Shams wanted us to talk about him because I don't know if you've noticed, Brian, but Hagel, first of all, only 1 point in his last 4 games. This was after he was above point per game before this stretch. But probably a reason for that is in the last game versus Dallas, Hagel was playing on a line with Asimont and Sorelli, so he wasn't with Kucherov and point. They were just stacking up Kucherov, point, and Stamkos. Also, Hagel's been off the top power play like for most of the season. It's been Nick Paul on the top power play, but of course that hasn't stopped Hagel. On the promising thing is that Tampa got so badly beaten by Dallas that you would think they're going to try something new next game. So I would definitely wait a little bit longer. But yeah, how concerned are you right now with this weird deployment and cold streak from Hagel?
As concerned as I always am when this happens to Brendan Hagel, which has been like a small handful of times over the last little, like I think I don't know if it's happened yet this season, but it did happen a couple other times. But Hagel has been like so ridiculously productive otherwise that like even if he is bumped for the moment, I'm not going to drop him because like he's over, right? I'd still really I'd be trying to hang on because Hagel looks like under the hood. Like I know he has like from coming from Chicago, the thought was like, oh yeah, he's just like this grinder and he's going to get in good deployment with Tampa and he's sort of riding the wave. And like, actually, I think Brendan Hagel's kind of good. So even if he is on the second line, second power play, it doesn't mean it's the end of Brendan Hagel. I think he still could do like maybe 50 points from that position. And I also don't think that's where he's going to stay for the rest of the season. So I would hold Hagel if you're at all disappointed by what's going on lately and just be really anxious and excited and hopeful that he gets his previous deployment back before too long.
Yeah, and if he's been dropped, I would jump on him because probably once the tweet comes out that he's back with Kucherov and point, so a lot of people might be waiting for that tweet. Okay, so next up, right? So the second goalie taken in that 2012 draft after Vasilevsky was Malcolm Subban, 24th overall by the Bruins. So I guess the Bruins would probably want to get that pick back, though Boston's been pretty good in net. So I don't think they're complaining too much with how things have turned out for them. Though since I'm talking about Boston, have you noticed Jake DeBrusk is back up where we would have thought he would have been to start the season? He's been playing on a line with Pavel Zacha and, of course, the incredible David Pastrnak, who I could just spend a lot of time talking about Pastrnak, right? 128-point pace going into today. Bruins are now up 3-1. Oh, the game's over. The Bruins won 3-1. Looks like a rare pointless game for David Pastrnak. So what do you know? It happens even to the best of us. I'm saying us, like me and David, both at the top of our field. But DeBrusk obviously also then pointless. But in general, it's a good spot, and DeBrusk has started to get a few points lately. How interested are you in Jake DeBrusk? Because he's probably in free agency in a lot of leagues. He had points in 2 straight games, I should say, before today's pointless game against Columbus. If he's back with Pasta, he was really good last year.
Yeah, he was. And that's the whole essence of it. He's not on the top power play unit, which was a big part of DeBrusk's success last year. He paced for almost 20 power play points. So like that's not like a knockout kind of number for power play production. But it's better than what he's been doing so far, which is 1 lone power play point in 23 games, which is even bad for the second power play unit. DeBrusk is also shooting only like basically half of what he's supposed to based on his career numbers. So, you give him a few more goals and he's like serviceable, even from where he is, and a couple more power play points, and he's still kind of serviceable from where he is. But with Pastrnak, that's great. But again, I who knows, right? I don't know how long DeBrusk is going to last there. But if you're asking me if I want him while he's with Pastrnak, the answer is yes. If you ask me if I got him, the answer is no. Somebody in my Cupful division beat me to him earlier today.
Okay, so DeBrusk, of course, famously couldn't get a foothold with coach Bruce Cassidy. It was only when Cassidy left that DeBrusk had that good season. Cassidy now in Vegas, where he's been blending up the lines a little bit, and I guess to the delight of Jack Eichel and Mark Stone, because finally those two are playing together. Like we thought they'd be stapled together when Vegas like initially acquired Eichel, but they've been apart for a long time. But yeah, right now Eichel's up to 7 points in his last 3 games. Stone has 3 points in his last 3, so that's going well. And they've been playing together with Ivan Barbashev. And Barbashev is someone who's been a pretty big disappointment overall on the season, but he now has points in 2 straight games. He had a goal and assist versus Vancouver, then assist versus Washington. I really like that spot with Eichel and Stone. Maybe going into next week, it's time to take another look at Ivan Barbashev. What do you think about him compared to, say, some of these other guys we've talked about? I don't know. We don't have to actually, we don't have to name names, but like just in general, are you like sort of interested in taking a shot, or is like you have to see a lot more before you would jump in?
I'm interested, but I don't know if he's quite in the JT Comfort class. And I'm not sure if he's like a little bit above or a little bit below, but I think that's probably around where Barbashev is. I love that 5-on-5 deployment with Stone and Eichel. I don't love that Barbashev has played 13 and a half minutes per night over the last two games since he's been promoted, and has just one shot combined over two games. So like those peripherals and opportunities to do more don't really seem to be there. So it's point or bust for Barbashev. And like I said, for Comfer, in like a couple, if he gets you an assist, you could still probably do better elsewhere if nothing at all else comes with that assist. But yeah, in a points league or like in a deep enough league, it's time to at least give another look to Barbashev.
Yeah, that's fair. Of course, Barbashev came from St. Louis, and the guy we brought up at the start of last week's episode, Jake Neighbors, has held that deployment with Thomas and Buchnevich, and also on the top power play with those guys. And Jake Neighbors continues to produce. He had 2 goals versus Buffalo. Obviously, he couldn't get anything past Connor Ingram. Who can nowadays? But he did take 4 shots. He tried his best. Also, 2 hits in that last game for Jake Neighbors. So I think this is similar to Ingram. This has got to be a pause the pod and go and grab Jake Neighbors, especially since St. Louis plays Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday next week. So you're getting 3 off-day games to start the week. Oh, I wish I had him. I'm not smart enough. But no, it was like this week his schedule wasn't that good. But now that I lost anyways, it's like I wish I could go back to my old self and be like, just grab him for the next week. You'll be so happy.
Yeah, that's the trick, right? It's like you always want to try
Time
and
travel.
maximize your games and pick like the guy who plays the one, maybe two extra games, get greedy for GP, and you pass on the guy who might be the better long-term option. And that's the gamble you make every Sunday night or Monday, and then regret the following Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. By the way, if you still want to grab someone in St. Louis and Neighbors is gone, you could go for Brandon Saad. You'll have to explain this to me, Brian. Saad is playing like on, I think, the third line with Kapanen and Sundqvist. Like, there's no reason to expect Saad to be doing anything, yet he has 6 points in his last 6 games. Is this a complete mirage, or is he someone you'd be interested in jumping on for those 3 off-day games to start the week?
Oh gosh, Brandon Saad and I have been through a lot together. Occasionally he's been on my roster for these streaks. More often, he's not. And Elon, I don't have much in the way of explaining why Brendan Saad is doing what he's doing, aside from I think a nice little swing in variance. He's also scored twice on his last 5 shots, and previously he had scored just 3 times on 39 shots. So a nice little boost to shooting percentage, which to be fair was overdue. But Saad is now on like a 40 to 45 point pace, and I expect that's about where he'll stay.
Okay, and of course, Saad had that one season in Colorado. So let's go there next. I talked about how I should have picked Cale Makar. He's actually injured also, just like Hamilton. He didn't play in overtime or the last couple of minutes of regulation in the last game. So I don't think we have an update yet. Maybe someone in the chat. By the way, Norm said in the chat that it would be wild if Mrazek went to the Devils back when we had our Devils chat. That would be pretty funny. Like
I
if
love that
Mrazek.
the Mrazek is the solution to any team's goaltending problem right
Yeah.
now. Like it is a team struggling for a goalie. Well, Petr Mrazek is right there. And yeah, no, that's the fun. I would like him to just be traded so we don't have to like speculate, because clearly it feels like it's going to happen, right? So let's just make it happen.
Yeah. Then he could
One,
let, people down and we could move on.
yeah, one of the places that I'm pulling your move, but just one of the places that he was rumored to go was Edmonton, right? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
There was like even
And Corey Perry also.
Corey Perry was going to go with him. But I think we need to at least give a little bit of credit to Stuart Skinner, who's won 7 of 9. And yes, in Edmonton, you can do that because of the run support. But he's kind of picked up his game. I mean, he has a 905 save percentage over that time because there were like 2 duds, well, 3 duds in there. But honestly, in 6 of his last 9, Stuart Skinner has looked like good to very good. And that's a
Right.
big step up from what he was offering before. So if you were able to snap him out of free agency when he and Campbell were trading starts, or he was struggling and like Pickard was called up and got a start, you're feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm feeling pretty good about that, Brian. There was a lot of advice questions about who to drop Skinner for, who to add, on our Discord when things, and I was like, I think I'm going for Skinner. Ever since Campbell got sent down, I've been like expecting that things will turn out, because then you said on the podcast you thought Edmonton was having some bad variance and whatever, and yeah, it's working out. So Edmonton doesn't need to worry about it. Shams is saying, what would a team pay for Blackwood? Imagine if New Jersey decides that Blackwood is the solution to their goaltending problems when they had him before, and he let them down so many times that they let him go. But yeah, Blackwood's having a pretty good season overall. He just like had a stinker today though against the Rangers. That's the risk with Blackwood, but sometimes he's good. So that'll be interesting to see like which teams end up paying for a goalie, and like that would be just so funny to me if New Jersey was like came back with like their tail between their legs, like going for Blackwood again to try to solve their problems. Anyways, I mentioned Makar was out, right? So with Makar out in Colorado, if it turns out he's out longer term, we've said that Bowen Byram was like a total snoozer before, but like with Makar out, maybe something changes. So take a look and see if Byram is going to get more ice time, maybe some extra power play opportunity. So that would be something that I would watch. Also on Colorado, I'll mention that Georgiev, speaking of goalies that we were worried about for a while, similar to Skinner, Georgiev's been like really good lately. So he's another guy that you maybe could have bought low on a while ago. And he's had like 5 straight games now with above 900, a lot of them like above like 930. So yeah, Georgiev he's good. Colorado's good. So that's worked out well. Brian, let's take a quick break and then we'll continue this chain of connections as we see where we go from Georgiev. We'll be back in just a sec. All right, we are back, Brian. So Alex Georgiev came from, of course, the New York Rangers. And if we're going to go to the Rangers, then we need to talk about their big return in Adam Fox, who is now back, which first of all means Eric Gustafsson has been bumped from the top power play. I think it's fair to say, Brian, just thanks for your service. You were amazing. But if you still have Gustafsson at this point, you're not doing this right. You have to let him go ASAP.
Yes. Yeah. And there's absolutely no more to it. He was fantasy irrelevant before that. He's always been fantasy irrelevant when not quarterbacking a top unit, which he won't be with a healthy Adam Fox.
Yeah. Today, the Rangers just beat San Jose 6-5. I'm seeing, and Gustafsson didn't pick up a point. So that's how it goes. Fox had an assist today after picking up 3 assists in his first game back versus Nashville. Actually, no, he also played a game against Detroit before that where he did nothing. But overall, that's still pretty good. 4 points in 3 games. So welcome back to Adam Fox. Also, the Rangers have been rolling some new lines. I don't know if today is considered a success. They got the win, but 6-5 against San Jose doesn't seem to maybe they would have wanted more. But yeah, actually, no, it looks like things are back to normal. I'm seeing here that Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere for at least a game or two, it was Panarin with Zibanejad. And I was going to compare them to Stone and Eichel, like 2 guys that we thought would play together, but then haven't really done so that much. And today they didn't again. So there you go. That answers that. And I was going to make a whole comparison that makes Lafreniere the Barbashev because he was playing with those guys. But Lafreniere back with Panarin and Trocheck. Trocheck's good. We're back to square one in the Rangers. Nothing to talk about, right? Except that Panarin is incredible. He's so good.
So good.
So Adam Fox was drafted by the Calgary Flames way back when. He was actually sent away in the Hamilton for Hanifin and Lindholm deal. He got traded to Carolina. Then there was that drama, whatever, and he ended up having to not play Carolina. Imagine if Carolina kept Adam Fox. Anyway, but speaking of Calgary, the team that drafted Fox, and their defenseman, Brian, have you noticed that Calgary has bumped Rasmus Anderson from not only the first power play, but also the second power play? What did Rasmus Anderson do? They hate him. They hate him there now. He is like, went from being the guy that you were like, I'm convinced he's like, top power play forever. And like just in the past 3 games, he's gotten basically no power play time. He did actually manage a power play assist. I'm seeing on Frozen Tools that Anderson had 4.8% of Calgary's power play time in that last game against Vancouver, and yet he had a power play assist. So.
It's because he was so effective so quickly.
Right. So I guess we'll see now if something changes on the next game. In the meantime, so it's been Noah Hanifin on the top power play with like Kadri, Huberdeau, Lindholm, and Sharangovich, and then Uyghur on the second power play. Is this a point now where like Uyghur's been like just so hot? He's like, they talked about him on short shifts, how he's got the great peripheral floor, so many shots, good number of hits and blocks, and now he's getting points. I think he's an obvious guy that's taken in most leagues at this point. Noah Hanifin though. Like Noah Hanifin on the top power play, that happens once in a while, and it seems to be kind of interesting when he gets there. He's still a free agent actually in my couple division. How interested are you in Hanifin as long as he holds the spot?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try a power play quarterback if you're desperate enough for defense. Like, I think an interesting question would be Hanifin versus Nemec.
I think I would. Oh, that's tough because the thing is also we don't know if like things are going to change. I think I'll go Hanifin. Seems like a safe bet. I'll take him while he's on the top power play. Maybe regret it if Nemec ends up like sticking around and being just as good, and Hamilton gets bumped by Anderson like in the next game.
Yeah.
2 points in 2 straight games for Hanifin.
Yeah, but that's it for Hanifin though. Like I think I'm with you. I would go Nemec just for the. Oh no, you said Hanifin. I think I'd go Nemec just for the upside because Hanifin, I think like we've seen sort of do this before. Hanifin for for all the time we spent talking about him on the show, like he's been in the league since he was a rookie in 2015-16. He's 26 years old. Like he's a baby. I can't believe how much more time we have to talk about Noah Hannafin.
Few. And you
It's
know what?
great.
He's going to probably be on a new team next year.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be fun.
We'll have to talk about yeah. The other Flames piece that I at least just wanted to touch on briefly was, we last talked about Jonathan Huberdeau when he'd put together a little 3-game point streak, and we thought maybe he was fixed. He's pointed just twice in his last 6 games. He had 3 points, all assists, some shots coming, but still nothing great going on there.
Mm-hmm. I added Mikhail Backlund out of free agency a couple games ago. He got a point in each of them. He's like up to 4 points his last 5 games. Backlund's playing with Huberdeau. So if you like Huberdeau and you think he's going to bounce back, and he's not taken, then go Backlund, I guess. I'm not saying it's going to be huge.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
I take Backlund
tough
over
margins with this Flames team. It just feels like no one is really going to step up and be awesome at any point. Like, Lindholm would be like the rock you'd look for. And he's on a 60. I mean, we talk about the Flames a lot, right? I think just because we're like scratching our heads over just how I think this is just like their style of play, though. Like they're going to be a team where like the leading scorer has 60 points and a bunch of guys might touch 50, and that's it.
Okay, so Uyghur, of course, came from Florida, and we kept saying every week, and we'll do it again now. We're going to check in on how those 2 returning defensemen are doing. Brian, I think at this point we've got 8 games now from Ekblad and Montour. I feel like that should be enough to at least say something about what they've been doing, and what they've been doing is not very much. Both of them have 2 assists only in 8 games. Montour's been on the top power play, so it's pretty surprising he hasn't picked up any stray assists on a power play goal. And then he has 1. And then Aaron Ekblad, yeah, I don't know. At this point, I wonder. Ekblad actually does have his 2 points are in his last 3 games, so that's good. And he did have 5 shots in the last game. So I'm just curious to get your heat check at this point. Are you like still holding? Are you panicking? Or are you waiting? What do you think about these 2?
I'm still holding. The Panthers, like I'm just looking at how many goals they've scored as a team over their last 8 games. And like just to see because what I'm seeing is that there hasn't been a lot of on-ice action for Ekblad or Montour. So the Panthers have scored 22 goals in the 8 games that they've been back. So yeah, that's like not so unusual. Like that's almost 3 goals per game. That's pretty decent. At 5-on-5, Ekblad has gotten a point on every goal he's been on the ice for, which means he's been on the ice for 2 goals, and he got a secondary assist on both of them. So and actually, sorry, that includes that's all strengths for Ekblad too. So I just think Ekblad hasn't been on the ice for very many goals, and I think that's why I'm going to say he only has 2 points. And I'm going to say the exact same thing for Montour. He's only been on the ice for 2. Sorry, nope, not the same thing for Montour. No, so I'll just retake that. And for Montour, well, he's got 2 points, but he's actually been on the ice for 11 goals. And that's actually like not a downside or anything. I think Montour is going to do better. Like that's less than 20% IPP, and we expect to see better for Montour's points participation rate. So yeah, no, sorry. I'm not ready to give up on either of these guys. I need to fact check myself too. At 5-on-5, Ekblad has been in on every goal that's been scored on the ice, which is 1. On the power play, he's been on for he's pointed on 1 of 4 power play goals he's been on the ice for, or at all strengths. Sorry, at all strengths.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for following through the winding path of discovering that Montour and Ekblad should be. Okay, I'm not giving up on them yet. Points. That's the bottom line.
Bottom line to me was kind of, though, at one point you were saying like if you're on the ice for not many goals, that's like a good sign. But also if you're on the ice for a lot of goals, that's also a good sign. Like basically you're saying if you don't get points, you're going to get more points no matter what. Or what am I missing here? Like
yeah,
what would be a bad sign?
That's a really good question.
Like sometimes you say a bad sign is like they're getting so many points.
Am I rigging it for both of them? That's what you're alleging, and it's reasonable. You're right, because if there's a lot of goals and they're not pointing, then it's like, okay, they'll get there, they'll regress. And if there's not a lot of goals, and that's why they're not pointing, then like, well, they'll get more goals. Like the team will score more. That's a good point, Elon. and I'm so glad you asked, and I don't have an answer for it. Like for me, I'm looking at shot generation for Montour, at 5-on-5 and expected goals rates for his line. They both look pretty healthy, and for Ekblad, same thing. So
All
I
right, so
just
shots are happening. Yeah,
yeah, everything looks good. So but you're right.
by
So
low
thanks.
time.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Montour, by the way, started in Anaheim. He was like a high pedigree guy at the time. I remember we were talking about him. Over in Anaheim now, the high pedigree guy is, of course, Leo Carlsson, who's coming off a huge game, a goal and an assist versus Colorado. He also had an assist in the game before versus Washington. Also, we've gotten news that he's going to move up to 3 games a week now. That's the latest. They're starting to ramp him up even more. So if you missed out on him, maybe like is now time to pounce. I feel like I would like to compare him to someone like a Jake Neighbors at this point. He's like a top line, top power play, whatever, great deployment. Well, also a first rounder. He's an early first rounder compared to Jake Neighbors being a late first rounder. So yeah, like how much should we be regretting that we dropped Karlsson when we did, and like also how much should we be rushing to grab him if he's still somehow out there?
Yeah, and this comes back down to the greedy for games played argument that we made before, right? Like you're in a tough position because Carlson with his schedule this week, he plays Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, so you're likely going to get one game from him until Sunday. And I think the question is, do you want to try and maximize your chance to win this week, or do you think you're okay to take your foot off the gas a little bit and make a bigger picture move? And if you're ready for the bigger picture move, yeah, I think like Leo Carlson looks pretty solid. I guess the other concern is that he's still not going to have a full workload. So I would still wonder if, even if, I do want the big picture and I'm happy to get just 2 games total from him this week on Tuesday and Sunday, and then most of the games the rest of the season. How many times is he going to sit, and how angry is that going to make me in critical moments in my matchup? So I guess that's the reason to still not go jumping for Leo Carlson, but I love his deployment. I love what he's shown so far. And I would like to have him, but I want him to be playing for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even get it like exactly right. Apparently, the quote was I'm seeing on Game Day tweets now. Like Verbeek said that Karlsson will be playing 3 games a week starting in the next week or so. So it might still be a week or so
Yeah.
until he does. Oh my gosh.
And that just means and you don't, but you also don't know which 3 games.
Yeah, it would be nice if he could just only bench him on like busy days, so that you were like you weren't gonna fit him into your fantasy lineup
Could
anyways.
could the Ducks just publish Leo Carlson's game schedule?
That'd
Like
be
they seem
handy.
to know it. Just do
Yeah.
it. Let us
Um.
know.
Yeah. Also in Anaheim, so I want to ask you about first of all Troy Terry. Oh, this guy still ice cold, not doing anything, but it's almost like annoying that he's done this. But he has 5 shots and 4 shots in his last couple of games. So is that reason enough now that we need to hold Troy Terry because he's shooting and that's a sign that something's going to happen, or are you dropping at this point?
Well, the last we talked about Troy Terry, he had been like bumped, right? Like he wasn't anywhere good in the lineup. So now
Yeah.
he is. He's playing with, I mean, I guess he's somewhere good. He's in the best place you can be in Anaheim. Well, maybe that's the McTavish line, Vetrano Strom. I don't know. There is no great place, but honestly, Troy Terry is still the best player in Anaheim, and he's playing with Karlsson and Killorn, which to me looks like enough of a first line and a first power play to remain interested in Troy Terry. Elon, I'm holding him in one league, and I have Sam Bennett stashed on IR, and I'm just like I just need to activate Bennett by dropping Terry. I'm just like, maybe someone else will get injured because I keep thinking like Terry's been bumped back up. Now he's shooting again. But it's a painful hold for sure. I'm still
Yeah. And
hopeful.
me too. I'll keep holding for a little longer. Took some shots. By the way, McTavish is hurt. He like didn't finish the last game. I don't think we have an update yet on if it's serious or not. Hopefully he'll be okay. I wanted to ask you about Alex Killorn because Trev, our accountability czar, asked us to dive into him. Killorn, started really slow, but he does have a couple of points in each of his last couple of games. We had a goal and an assist versus Colorado, and he also had an assist versus Washington. Also, those shots on goal, Brian, which we always love, are really high. He's had 3+ shots in all of his last 5 games. Oh, one of them was 2, but a couple of them were 4. So Killorn is putting the pucks on net, which we like. He's getting good deployment, like you said, with Terry and Karlsson. When Karlsson's in the lineup, he's been on the top power play. Maybe it's do we need to go and get Alex Killorn?
I think so. I do. I like it's a similar calculation for Leo Carlsson, right? Because of the Ducks schedule this week. But Alex Killorn, top line, top power play, off night schedule most weeks for the Ducks. I think so, yeah, for as long as he's in his current deployment. And like to be fair, even the best case scenario, like Elon, I don't know what you'd put the ceiling on Killorn's upside for. I would say like 60 points is as much as I would expect from Killorn in Anaheim, regardless of where he plays in the lineup. Like that's like probably best case scenario. So it's still all you're getting, but it's the potential to find some reasonably reliable production on the wire that you might not otherwise see regularly with Killorn's recent promotion and shot taking.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if he plays 3 times in a week and he gets like a goal and an assist and a decent number of shots, that's usually pretty good for a streamer. By the way, you mentioned before the McTavish line is the place to be. It might just be at this point like playing with Vetrano is the place to be. He's been
Yeah.
so good, 23 points in 24 games. But okay, so remember when Anaheim signed Klingberg and how badly that went? Remember how then Toronto saw that and was like, I want some of that. And then they signed Klingberg and it's gone just as bad. So let's go to Toronto now and talk about. Oh, Brian's gone. Hope everything's okay. Let's go to Anaheim and talk about. That's the edit point. How's everybody doing? What's going on? Okay, let's check what's going on here. Colorado and LA 1-1 in the third. Real goalie duel between Georgiev and Talbot. It looks like Josh Manson scored a goal. That doesn't happen too often. This is like really terrible. I'm just totally winging it right now. I am kind of curious to just see who got all these goals in this Rangers and San Jose game. What's with Hurdle? Only one assist and no shots. Is Hurdle like not 100% since he's come back from this? Turned out he had like a minor surgery. Man. Meanwhile, Granlund had 7 shots. Interesting. No one on San Jose had like a huge game, even they scored 5 goals. I'm seeing like only Anthony Duclair had 2 points, and it's just like pretty much everyone else has a point except for G Smith. So like Giovanni Smith, I think. Let me click into who's G Smith. Yeah. Oh, Giovanni Smith, then Justin Bailey and William Eklund. Those are the only 3 forwards on San Jose who didn't get a point today. Even on defense, a lot of them got a point. But Ferraro didn't. But Benning didn't. Yeah, surgery for kidney stones. That's not the kind of thing that you should still be like recovering from, right? I guess what do I know? I don't like this hurdle. It looks like I'm looking on ESPN. I see SM. I think that's shots missed. So Hurdle missed 4 shots. So maybe that's a sign that he'll get more shots coming up. Man, 0 shots on goal for Hurdle. I'm still gonna hold him, I guess. But yeah. Sham saying, are the Sharks no longer joke territory? Like they definitely haven't been like just this like easy win. You haven't seen many of these like 9-2 losses like Tampa Bay just suffered from Dallas. So yeah, I think it's like a little bit more interesting. Like I think if there was a good schedule, like Granlund at this point is kind of hard to ignore with his deployment and his production recently. So I like him. This guy on the Rangers, by the way, Johnny Brodzinski, he had a good game in the last game too. I'm saying he had 2 assists today. So maybe he's playing with Kreider and Zibanejad. Should have brought him up on the Rangers. Shams, yeah. SM, I'm pretty sure SM is shots missed. Like missed shot. It's definitely a stat that people track because it's like the whole Corsi thing is like shot attempts, right? So it counts like shots on goal and missed shots and block shots. Everything okay? Right?
Yeah, sorry. All good.
All right. Should we keep going?
Yeah, you were talking about Klingberg.
Yeah.
Did you
yeah.
finish that talk?
No, I left. I stopped when you left.
Oh, you just. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I'll go from that didn't go well. That sure didn't work out. The Toronto saw that like, oh, we'll just do the same thing. Anyway, let's go to Toronto and talk about what's going on in the Leafs. They've been changing up their lines recently. They swapped Marner and Nylander, and I don't know. We'll see how long that lasts. In the meantime, our third wheels are the same. Matthew Nyes now playing with Matthews and Nylander, and Tyler Bertuzzi playing with Marner and Tavares. Nyes had an assist and 5 shots yesterday in the loss to Boston. He was pretty cold before. Bertuzzi pointless in 3. Like I don't know, just a check-in we could do every once in a while. Are we interested in these third wheels in Toronto? Great spots. And maybe that's like disrespectful, especially to a strong prospect like Nyes to call him a third wheel. But at this point, I think that's what he is. Are you interested in any of these guys moving forward? Or are they back to sort of just like top of free agency and you're watching them, but you're waiting for Toronto to have a good schedule?
Yeah, the 2 game week means that I think you can drop Nyes, but I do like him. I do like, he's had a couple 5-shot games recently, and had like some big hit games too. So, if he's only going to have spotty production, if he can like have some more peripheral contribution, which he didn't really have the last time we checked in on him, that would be more helpful. So yeah. But would I hold him? No, through this. I wouldn't. Bertuzzi's still a bit of a head scratcher for me because I feel like he should be
I
doing better.
I drop him. It's okay.
Yeah, I think so too. And the reason I drop him is because I think you could get him back. Like I don't think it's going to be like a race for everyone to pick him up and like burn a waiver priority for Tyler Bertuzzi in a 2 game week when he's on a like 34-point pace this season. I still think there's a pretty good chance he deserves better than what he's done so far and that he could be rosterable through the season. But, like honestly, at the end of this week, for anyone who did, if he was dropped in a league that I'm in, I would start looking at him as I start planning for next week as somebody that I would give a shot and see how he does over the course of a week.
By the way, Brian, speaking of third wheels, when we were talking about the Rangers before, I should have brought up the guy currently playing with Kreider and Zibanejad. His name is Johnny Brodzinski. He's 30 years old. He doesn't even have that much of a track record in the league. He's played 105 games overall, but he has 2 straight 2-assist games playing with Kreider and Zibanejad. So if that sticks, and he's even taken some shots. He's got 3, 2, and 4 shots in these 3 games since he's been, I guess, called up from the minors. So definitely a name I want to throw out there. Johnny Brodzinski. Check game day tweets, see if he sticks with Zibanejad and Kreider, because that's clearly a spot that he's producing at. But okay, let's now next go to, of course, Toronto. Their big free agent signing a few years ago, Johnny Tavares. Can I say Johnny Tavares? I said Johnny Brodzinski. Can I call
I
him
think you
Johnny
got to say
Tavares?
John. I don't know. I think he's a John.
He's a John, not a Johnny. Okay, well, obviously Tavares came from the Islanders, and on the Islanders, Matt Barzal so hot. He missed his last game with illness, but before that, he's been having a breakout season similar to his year back when he was playing with Johnny Tavares. I'm gonna say what I want, but yeah, Barzal up to 23 points in 22 games now, looking really good. But would definitely a steal in drafts because I know he was falling really far. But not much we can do about him. But do we need to start considering like Anders Lee again? I've kind of had decided that he's done, and like I don't need to think about him in fantasy. He's not even like worth considering as a stream now and then. But Lee has been back on the top line with Barzal and Horvat until obviously that last game where Barzal didn't play. But Lee's scored a goal anyways. He's gotten 3 points in his last 3 games. He also scored a couple goals last week against Ottawa and Philly. So, he's not on the top power play anymore. He was in the last game again because Barzal was out. And it was a power play goal. There you go. So that spot's not going to hold because he's been bumped by Palmieri. But maybe Lee is someone to at least have on your radar while he's on that top line.
Yeah, he crept back onto my radar too, Elon, over the last few days, and I've asked myself, is he someone I should be considering again? And I think it's a bit of a mirage, I have to say, based on 4 goals on 17 shots in his last 8 games. Now, the promising thing is that there was a 4 and 5 shot game. There was a space where Lee had 2 goals on 9 shots. Unfortunately, that was already like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And since then, he's just returned to doing like, couple shots a game maybe, and picking up assists and having still like middling ice time. So Anders Lee is like maybe at least back into streaming territory, but I am not thinking that he's somebody I'm ready to like pick up and think, oh, maybe I'll get the old Anders Lee back.
Okay, so Palmieri, who has bumped Anders Lee, obviously came from New Jersey. We already talked about New Jersey. We talked about how Vanacek sucks. Vanacek, of course, came from Washington, where they have a goalie who doesn't suck in Charlie Lindgren, who's been really hot lately. 5 wins, 5 quality starts in his last 6 games. Darcy Kemper has been mad. They talked about him on short shifts recently, so I don't know how deep of a dive we have to do, but I think there is a chance that Lindgren is sneaking into like at least a 50-50, like 1B, which makes me like interested in him for a streaming spot for sure, a spot start. But I think the main concern is like Kemper, right? If you were expecting Kemper was one of those guys, there's like so few goalies I'd be like guaranteed like volume starter because who's the backup? Charlie Lindgren. Okay, Kemper's going to play a lot. I don't feel that way anymore. This is like a situation where Kemper might play 55% of the games, maybe less though, since Lindgren has been better. You have Kemper, right?
I do.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I don't feel as good as I once did, although even before when Kemper was a volume starter, like the numbers still weren't even that great for me to consider that, like, oh, I guess I have to hold on to him all season long. I was just hoping he'd play better. And while Kemper has been playing better as of late, it's been interspersed with games from Charlie Lindgren, who, yeah, remember, I don't know if you remember, Charlie Lindgren had like a surprise start on the opening night of the season because I think Kemper had like a kid. And since then, it didn't go that great for Lindgren. But since then, Lindgren has been in the net 6 times. 5 of those have been wins, and 5 of those have been like really solid showings. Like I would say like the win, he had to stop 34, say 34 shots, 35, 33, and 38 to pick up 4 of those 5 wins. The other one, easy night against New Jersey on the road. He stopped 24 of 26. So, um, like what I'm seeing from Lindgren is some really incredible numbers, really. And if I like as a Kemper manager, I am wondering if my for sure number one Kemper is turning into a timeshare Kemper, 1A, 1B, or even a straight up number two if both these guys continue on their current trajectory. So I wouldn't add, like if you're in a league where you want volume, I wouldn't add Charlie Lindgren yet, but I'd put him on the watch list, depending on how rare goalies are. If goalies are like super rare, then like you might as well just do a spec ad on Lindgren and see how the next week goes. But he is maybe putting a little Lindgren to Kemper's Vejmelka move happening.
Seems like it. Yeah, that's a good comparison. By the way, Lindgren started in Montreal, and Montreal just signed their own, I guess, goalie who kind of came out of nowhere. And Sam Montembeault just got a new contract. He's been great lately. We'll see if Montreal still has like 3 goalies, but Montembeault has been the clear best option there. Also, Montreal, Alex Newhook is hurt, so that's a bummer. You can look at the lines. Montreal's like just not a place to stream people in from, like Suzuki, Caulfield, and Sean Monahan in the last game, but Monahan hasn't been doing much lately. So let's move on, Brian. As a Sens fan, does it bother you a little bit that teams like Montreal and Washington get these really good goalies for like pennies on the dollar? I don't know what Montreal spent on. Well, I know the new contract with Montembeault was like 3 years and 3 mil or something, but like they didn't have to pay much to acquire him in the first place. Obviously, Washington got Lindgren, I think, first song, or maybe as a free agent. Meanwhile, Ottawa spent big for a long time on Eunice Corpusalo, and he's been not very good, unfortunately. 4, 5, and 4 goals against in the last 3 games. Meanwhile, Anton Forsberg shut out Seattle yesterday. I think I've asked you the same thing before, like when Forsberg
You
had his
have.
last good game. So it's probably
Uh-huh.
just going to, who knows? But I'm just pointing it out that Ottawa, maybe Forsberg deserves more. We'll see.
I don't, it's been a long time since Anton Forsberg has strung more than like one or maybe generously 2 good games together. And as I mentioned last time you brought this up, Korpisalo has actually been pretty good at 5-on-5. Like not great. Like he's been fine. That's not the problem. It's on the penalty kill where he has a 797 save percentage, where he is getting wrecked. And that's a big reason for his overall struggles this season. So um I'm not like I'm definitely like I could see Corpusalo as a half decent buy low candidate because if that short-handed save percentage levels out and he holds on to what he's been doing at 5-on-5, which he's been doing for 10, 15 games now, which isn't a ton. Like it might go poof. But I've seen enough to say, hey, maybe this could work out. Was it a smart move? Like, am I going to say like, yes, this justifies the contract signing? No, it's going to take a lot. It would take a lot more than this for me to get there. But I at least see some promise.
Okay, that's something. What about on defense, though? I'm seeing a lot of disappointment. Like on the plus side, they have Thomas Chabot back, so that's good, right? And he's played a couple games. He had an assist versus Columbus, nothing versus Seattle, but 5 shots on goal, nothing to sneeze at. Also looks like he was getting top power play time, though we're talking like 51%. So it looks like they're going pretty even for these couple of games. Meanwhile, Jake Sanderson, pointless in 5. Jacob Chikrin, pointless in 6. Yeah, what's up? Especially Chikrin. What's going on with Jacob Chikrin? Because he's not even shooting that much. He had one 5-shot game, but that's sandwiched in between a 1, a 0, and a 1. I thought that was his big thing. Is he at least shoots a whole lot, and even if he doesn't get the power play time, he's going to be so great because of the periffs and the points. But yeah, you're in Ottawa. Tell me the answer. What's going on with him?
Well, I think the problem for the whole team is they're not scoring a whole lot. Just 9 goals over the last 5 games, including just 2 for 21 on the power play. Before that, the power play had actually been clicking like really well. Like the Sens have had a power play goal in nearly every game they've played this season. They've played in 19 games. They have a power play goal in like 14 of them. So I guess it's a little surprising that we're not seeing like more power play production from the defenseman, but it's also not because this is what we've talked about year in, year out from the way that Ottawa does run their power play. So I think for all these guys, there just haven't been enough goals to go around to get points from in the last 5 games, and the goals will come back, and so will the points. But I think it does sort of underline that neither of these guys are like someone you can really safely rely on. Like you said, you thought you could for Jacob Chychrun and the shots and like, peripherals he'd offer, but it's a different context in Ottawa this year. Can I mention one other senator who I'm curious, Elon, if you think he's a snoozer?
Mm-hmm.
Vladimir Tarasenko. Remember, he's on. For anyone who might have forgotten that he's on Ottawa, like period, he has just 3 points in his last 8 games, and one of those was a multi-point effort. He's had like some low shooting games and some like mid shooting games. There's not a whole lot going on there, so I'm just gonna put that out there. If you are holding Tarasenko, I'm not saying that it's drop time for him, but I think he's on a bit of a snoozer watch at the minute. Though last game he was playing with Drake Batherson and Tim Stützle. It's a pretty sweet place to be.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's playing with Stützle usually does pretty well. We've seen Matthew Joseph have such a great run playing in that spot. So we'll see if Tarasenko could turn things around from there. Of course, Seattle wasn't able to get anything past Ottawa in the last game. Like I said, Forsberg got the shutout. Seattle, who knows, maybe they would have scored if they had Jaden Schwartz, but he's injured. Too bad. He's expected to miss 6 weeks. Everyone on Seattle is basically cold right now in terms of offense. There's not too much to talk about. Fun game for the listeners. Can you guess who Seattle's leading scorer is right now in terms of points? The answer is Oliver Bjorkstrand, and he actually had 5 shots versus Ottawa. He was trying his best to beat Forsberg. He also had 9 shots versus Toronto. Bjorkstrand is a guy we used to love in Columbus. He was on like going on these great runs. Seemed like he'd sort of gotten buried in Columbus, but look at him, top scorer on the team right now, higher than McCann, higher than Beniers. So kudos to Oliver Bjorkstrand. I'd say,
Yeah,
taking those shots too.
love to see the 9 shots against Toronto a few nights back, and then followed that up with 5 against Ottawa. Nothing to show, like no goals to show for it. It's actually pretty wild that with all the shooting we've seen from Bjorkstrand, he has just 2 goals in his last 12 games. So I would like to think that if he keeps shooting, he's going to be scoring more. But this is Seattle, where they like to buck a whole lot of trends about what we should and shouldn't expect. But yeah, Bjorkstrand, actually, why do I see just 1 goal? It depends on the source. Oh, no, sorry. It is just 1 goal in his last 11 on 36 shots in 11 games. So it's pretty rare for a guy to take 3 shots a game and have just 1 goal over this stretch. So yeah, if he's still somehow available in any of your leagues, he's like Elon. I think he's like this year's Burakovsky for Seattle. Like Burakovsky was the one guy, or well, Burakovsky and McCann were the ones who like kind of stood out last year. It's Bjorkstrand's turn this year.
Yeah. By the way, Burakovsky is like apparently skating. Like he might be back at some point, so he'll be someone to watch for. Maybe he could take over what Jaden Schwartz was doing for a stretch there. All right, Brian. I think that's going to end it for my like linking players. But I got like 3 guys I want to ask you about. Just a quick, sustainable or fleeting here. First, a hot streak on San Jose, which by the way, Tomas Hertl missed a game because he had surgery for kidney stones. But then he like came back really quickly, and now he's like not doing anything. And then Jay Brew in the chat said that he's like playing through kidney stones or something. Like he still has remaining kidney stones. So like, come on. Anyway, like I feel like he should sit out and just heal rather than give me 0 points. He did get an assist today versus the Rangers. He did have assist also in the last game versus New Jersey. So I guess I can't complain. Okay, fine. But the guy who's like red hot right now on San Jose is Mikael Granlund. It's kind of funny. Like I didn't think going into the year that I'd be doing a podcast where I'd be singing the praises of Gustav Nyquist and Mikael Granlund. But here I am, and Granlund is now up to 7 points in his last 5 games after another assist today and 7 shots versus the Rangers. Is this like, do we have to take this serious? This is a guy who people were laughing about with how bad he looked last year in Pittsburgh and how Pittsburgh totally biffed it. And like Pittsburgh had to pay to get rid of him as part of the Karlsson deal. And now Granlund is crushing it.
He is. Yeah. Like I don't know how often I've ever seen a 7 shot game from Mikael Grenlund. So like I'm not gonna disregard that when it happens. And I'll watch to see if he's gonna take another like 4, 5, 6, 7 shots again. 3 of his last 5 games, Granlund has taken 4 or more shots on goal. And as you mentioned, Elon, he's got 7 points over those last 5 games. So there's reason to stream him in if you want to take a shot, but it is really funny that we're talking about Granlund and Nyquist on a podcast today about how both are hot and worth a stream. And it's also funny that they're wearing like each other's jerseys while doing it.
And I guess another guy that I didn't expect to talk about is Mason Marchment, who was super cold to start the year after having a disappointing year last year, but he's got 5 points in his last 3 games, really clicking with Sagan and Duchesne. Dallas has a good schedule next week. Marchment's taken 4 and 5 shots in each of his last couple of games. If he's out there, let's say Granlund versus Marchment, who are you streaming in next week? Forgetting about the schedule.
Oh, I think like I feel I don't know, like Marchment's 28 years old, right? I feel like we've seen about what we're gonna see, but he did have a 71 point pace a couple years back with Florida, although that like a lot of that came during like that crazy like month stretch. Hmm. I think I don't know. I think I'm gonna go Marchment just because I think I believe a little bit more in his like true skill level, even though like I wish he were a few years younger so I could believe a little bit more. But I think that's where I'm at. And he's also on a better team, so he needs to maybe work a little less hard to get a point on a goal. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just let the schedule, I guess. Like, I think it's really a coin flip. I don't know how Granlund is doing what he's doing, but San Jose plays Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and Dallas goes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. So grab Marchment, roll it. It's Tampa Bay on Monday, and as we said, like Vasilevsky's struggling right now. So we'll see. Dallas just destroyed Tampa Bay, right? So it might be a revenge game where Tampa now gets a shutout. That'll be actually really fun to see how that turns out. Okay, last one to end the show, Brian. We had a question from Andy S. asking us to talk about JJ Paterka, who we were loving so much on Buffalo, saying he's a grab, he's a hold, he's going to be incredible. And I'm not like making fun, like I felt the same way. And now all of a sudden we're getting a question from Andy being like, is JJ Paterka a snoozer? How quickly things change. But I'd say no. Like he's pointless in 2 games, but before that he had a 3-game point streak. I didn't think that he was going to get points forever. I don't
Agree.
know.
Yeah, I think I feel like that's like you gotta wait a little longer. And like honestly, even if Paterko did go cold for 4 or 5 games, I would like still give him some time. And then like he pointed 2 games in a row and went cold another 5. It was like, okay, Paterka season's done. But yeah, with how much we've expressed our enjoyment for him, I'm not there yet.
All right. And with that, Brian, we've finished our tour around the league. We haven't covered all the teams, so we
Can
definitely
I
covered. Oh,
Yeah, well, I'm going to cover one more that was on the docket, just to do a little appreciation, and you won't be surprised that I want to appreciate 2 Philadelphia Flyers that I drafted late, and I said I would, way back in mock draft season. But Kim Atkinson is cold. Yes, it's true. He hasn't done anything for his last 4 games, and he's on a 48 point pace this season. Okay, so like neither of that is pretty, but he like I see reasons to think he can do better. And one of those reasons is he's still shooting a bunch. He hasn't scored in his last 9 games, even though he's taking 3 shots per night. If you go back further, the shooting luck is still pretty rough for Cam Atkinson. And then Sean Couturier is someone who is doing better, who's not as cold and has a 60 point pace this season. And you might still be able to get him for nothing. And what I love about Sean Couturier, have you seen his shot game logs, Elon?
lots of shots. Sean Couturier, he's great.
Yeah, he's firing away. And I wonder if like he might be just like some sneaky sitting on the waiver wire while everyone's given up on him kind of value. Like there's 6, 7, and 8s in his shot log over the last like week and a half. He's got 28 shots in his last 6 games. That's almost 5 per game, and just 1 goal in that time, 3.5% shooting percentage. So listen, I roster both these guys. I'm not gonna lie, I'm invested. Full disclosure, there, that's done. but I still think that we might be able to see more to give. A lot of we've talked about it, like a lot of players and specifically flyers who may or may not be producing, but I think it's pretty rare to find guys like Atkinson and Couturier with their shot production on the wire. And I just think you should keep your eyes peeled for them in case they do start converting on more of their chances, as I think they should.
All right. Shot Couturier, as Sham says here in the chat. Brian, this has been so fun making connections all around the league. Hopefully, we've given people some good tidbits to go ahead and win their next weeks, pick up some potential holds, but make some sad drops. But sometimes you got to do it. But with that, Brian, we've come to the end. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the show. Let us know what you thought. Tweeted us at Keeping Karlsson. If you're in the Discord, we'd love to hear your feedback on the show. If you want to come hang out with us as a patron, you could join at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. We've got a really fun community. And according to Kevin, our couple coordinator, if you wanted to play in the couple and take over a team, it's like very likely that if you sign up now and join the waitlist, you're going to get a team like in the next month, like pretty soon, because now's the time of year when potentially some teams are starting to go cold. The teams that we're going to like, the people that we're going to give up, it's going to happen around now. It's already started to happen a little bit. We've got a couple people in the wait list, but we definitely have spots. So yeah, if you want to play, I think it's a really good opportunity to come in, take over a team midway. It's a fun challenge. And then you have some experience going into next year when you have your first like real couple draft and actually start working your way up. So if you want to check into all of that, go to keepingkarlsson.com/patron, or also for the league, it's kkupfl.com. Brian, with that, let's cue the outro music. Why don't you read the credits and take us out of here?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Patty, Ricard, David, Ryan, Tom, Zachary, Andrea, Sammy, Ivan, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Jordan, Michael, Don, and Roman. Thank you all. Thanks to all our patrons. Like, you really do power all the episodes. So we appreciate you. Thanks. Thanks also, Kevin A. Bear. Oh, and I want to give a little special shout out to Derek. So Kevin Hebert is our Cupful coordinator, and Derek has been working with us. Derek is a patron and Cupful manager and has helped us redefine the Cupful pyramid. We have some really exciting news that we've just shared on our Discord server that we are flattening the pyramid, so to speak. Go back and listen to episode number 488 from back in the summer where we talked all about it. Anyway, we're making it tier 1 more accessible. We're making consolation brackets more important, more meaningful. There's a lot of really nice under the hood change, like benefits to some changes we're making or trying to. Anyway, kkupfl.com if you want to join and see what we're doing. So thanks to Kevin, and also thanks Derek. Thank you, Shams, Jeremy, and Lewis, for all you're doing on short shifts and keeping those episodes coming. Elon, thanks to you and Shams for all you're doing to keep the news coming on GameDayTweets.com to help us win our leagues. Logo art by BrandonWeave.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoldies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Great job as always, Brian. Such a fun show with you. As always. I already said as always, but it is true. I enjoy chatting with you every week. While I have to wait a whole other week before we do this all again, what can I do to bide my time?
While you're biding your time, twiddling your thumbs, ask yourself, what can I do to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone? And then do it.
All right. Great show. I'm getting messages saying like, oh my God, you're not even done yet. So I think it is time to go. Thanks everyone for watching. Brian, yeah, like I said, pleasure. See ya. Thank you.
Bye.